Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's Wednesday, November 6th. It's the regular meeting of the Pitkin County Commissioners. We're in executive session this morning, thus we're starting just a little bit late. I'm going to ask for additions or deletions to the agenda.
There are no additions or deletions to the agenda. I would note for the board that the land use item will be continued.
So we don't need to make any changes to that.
Yeah, no changes to the agenda. You'll just be continuing it at the end of the day.
The land use item will be? Really?
Got it, thank you.
That was quite a packet.
Okay, we're going to open it. We're going to jump right in. We're going to open it up to public comment. Anybody here for public comment who'd like to speak? Come on out. Tony, welcome.
Thank you. Does it make a difference where I shall go? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and I was a candidate for Pitkin County Commissioner, and I wanted to congratulate Francie very much. I think you've done a great job. And you're welcome. And when I started my campaign, it was not running against you. It was running for the platform of Highway 82 and the Aspen area. But you did a great job, and keep up the good work. And everyone today looks like either you've got a good night's sleep or you still need to get a good night's sleep. And in my 50 years here, I would have to say the airport has probably been one of the most hotly debated issues of anyone, of any issue. So congratulations for, standing tall and still hanging in there and getting things moving forward. So with that being said, that with Francie, I knew that in June in the primary, when I looked at the stats, I was like, there's no way I'm going to win. But, and it's true, those stats stayed the same through the whole election. And when I first started and I looked at who I was going up against, so to speak, and that wasn't my intention, I brought back Jeffrey Evans, and he ran on the 4-lane entrance to Aspen, and his stats were identical to mine, like 75-25. And that's why I said my campaign wasn't a sexy campaign, it was a nut and bolts campaign. And I've had a lot of people call and text me, and my phone's been going off the hook. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, hey, this is good. It's all good. Because throughout my whole campaign, I said I was committed to getting Highway 82 fixed, to get all the minefields, and to jumpstart the Aspen aerial connection. And since I announced my candidacy, we've had 4 major things happen on the highway. And I'm thinking maybe it is better that I'm on the other side and not on your side of the table. But one of the things, and one of the most important things, is the city of Aspen pulled the entrance to Aspen question about transforming the Merle open space into a transportation corridor. And that opened the door so we can do an environmental impact study, which you will be part of, everyone will be, and then hence opening the record of decision. And the beauty of that is we get to look at more alternatives that can actually work much better than the preferred alternative. And then, so that was the one thing, getting the environmental impact study started. Then the Twin Bridges proposal that the Board of County Commissioners approved the design for that. That's a crucial part of the connectivity between the Airport Business Center and Brush Creek Park and Ride. Then the Smith Hill Road, starting to make progress on that. A grant's been applied for that. I'm not sure if the solution that's been picked for right now is the best solution for Smith Hill Road, but hopefully we'll involve the public in that sooner than later. And then the Lazy Glen intersection, an acceleration lane coming forward. And then for me, the important thing is kickstarting the Aspen aerial. And in one of the opinion ops that actually the ski company, 2 CEOs put forward on the airport question, the very last paragraph, they said, imagine an aerial connection from the airport to Buttermilk, Highlands, and Aspen. And for me, that was a milestone that someone's actually seeing the beauty of having an aerial connection. And so last night, after holding my sign on Main Street, I get in my car to go home. From Mill and Main, 30 minutes to the Hickory House it took. And then 15 minutes from the Hickory House to the Mountain Rescue Building, and another 12 minutes to Brush Creek Park and Ride. And what was in my head when I was sitting in that traffic? Where's the aerial? We really need an aerial. And then this morning coming in, I thought I was going to be late coming to the meeting because stuck in traffic again from the airport. Actually, at the light at the airport to the Mountain Rescue Building, that took 20 minutes. And I'm like, where's that aerial? But anyway, my commitment to the community and to everyone is that it's a goal of mine is to get the minefields of Highway 82 fixed, and I'm committed to that. So that's one project. And then the second project is the Aspen Aerial, which will be part of the bigger project. But anyway, I wanted to thank everyone very much, and it was really fun. And Francie, thank you so much for letting me be your challenger, so to speak. But and we'll move forward. But again, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for
you.
coming in. I appreciate your sentiments, and we look forward to working with you some more.
Can I reply to Tony? I
Yeah,
just want to
sure.
quickly say that I think that contested elections are incredibly important for a strong democracy, and that they really provide better reflection and debate and discussion and policy exchange of ideas. And I think it requires a lot of courage to do it. So I really thank you for throwing your hat in. I think it's very meaningful.
Kelly, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And I knew that the airport and the affordable housing question were like the top priority for the communities, but I wanted those to have a life of their own. And that's why, as Steve Child once said to me, Tony, you need more than just Highway 82 for your platform. I'm like, well, Steve, that's the most important issue facing everyone on a daily basis. And it did give us the opportunity in public forums and the Squirm Night and whatnot to have these discussions.
Thanks,
I
Tony.
do appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
I'm going to continue public comment. Any other? Ellen, come on down.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, good afternoon.
I'm Ellen Anderson, and I live in Aspen Village, and it's a sad day for me, but I wanted to congratulate you. Hard-fought ballot issues, but you prevailed, and I wanted to say congratulations to you. We all worked very hard, and we all felt very passionate, and you won. So congratulations. Moving forward, I would hope that there's something we all can agree on in terms of the airport, and that is to finally do a study on why the air smells so bad. And very quickly, I just want to go over some of the things that have been in recent literature. There have been studies recently from all kinds of sources. Aviation Week magazine, a study out of Delft, the University of California, San Diego Medical School, Transport and Environment, University of Wisconsin, Science Direct, National Institutes of Health, Nature magazine, New Scientist, another one at National Institutes of Health. And what they're all saying is, the Delft study said, can living near an airport make you ill, despite growing evidence that ultrafine particle exposure can contribute to respiratory symptoms, heart rate variability, blood pressure problems, and have long-term effects on mortality. This pollutant remains largely under-researched and under-regulated. Now we have the opportunity to measure it actually at the science, the facts of the matter. And I'm hoping that Pitkin Environmental Health and Public Health can get involved, and you guys can get behind it, and we can get a study to actually find out what's in the air at the airport. And I hope we can all agree on that. But once again, congratulations, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Appreciate it. Other public comment? Anybody else in the room want to say anything? Not seeing any. What about online? Do we have people online with hands up, *9 to raise your hand? I don't see any hands up. I'm going to bring it back for commissioner comment. Patty.
I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to vote. It is your right, and I'm glad that people followed that right. It was discussed in the book, the Bill of Obligations, that it's your constitutional right to vote, but you're obligated to vote, and I think that's greatly important. I always think you're coming for me, so. So I want to thank everybody. We did have a great turnout. I want to thank the election staff and the election judges for working so hard to see this election through. I don't know if things have been totally resolved, Kelly. Have you heard any? I know we had a lot of people
Processing
coming.
ballots.
Yeah, they had a lot of people coming in yesterday. Even almost right at 7 o'clock dropping off their ballots. But I want to thank everyone. And I really want to thank the community for, it was a difficult ballot from start to finish. And I think people took time to educate themselves. I received a lot of calls about various issues on the ballot. And I have to say that I know that the airport question had some issues on both sides, but I think it's time now we can work together as a community and move forward in positive directions for the environment, for health, for safety, and all of the things we need to do at the airport. And I'm really hoping that now we can move past the election and move forward with the issues that need to be attended to at the airport. So I do look forward to working with the community on all sides, moving the ALP and the next steps to fruition. It's going to take some time and a lot of work and energy on all sides, but I think the Board of Commissioners is ready to take it on, and we've advised staff that we have a lot to do, and we're gearing up. So thank you all.
Great, thank you. Other board comments? Steve?
A couple of comments. First of all, about the airport. I'd like to thank all the people who supported our position on the airport. It was my second meeting as a commissioner in 2013. We were discussing the airport layout plan, which we had at that time, which had some serious deficiencies to it that we wanted to correct. And it really has taken 12 years to get to the point we are and making those changes. To me, it could be part of my legacy that I helped on the airport layout plan that we have come forward with or be discussing later. So I'm really just proud of what we've accomplished on that, and thank those who have supported it. There is a solution to the traffic problem in Aspen, to the entrance to Aspen, and I rode on it today. I ride on Raftabus. I do not drive my car into town. And today, even on the Raftabus, it was bumper to bumper, slow traffic, starting at about Old Snowmass all the way into Aspen. And so a trip that should have been much faster on a Raftabus actually was slow today, but then once we finally hit the bus lane by the airport, then we passed all the other cars really quickly. Now, if half the cars on the highway would get off the highway and leave their car at home, ride the Raftabus up, I'm sure we maybe would have to hire more Raftabus drivers and get more buses, but it would reduce the traffic coming across the Castle Creek Bridge from the roundabout and all that. We'd be a whole lot better off. There was one time where I wanted, 2 trips from here to the rec center to go work out after meetings. One time it took me 45 minutes on the bus to get through all the traffic jam, through the roundabout and up. The Castle Maroon bus goes to the hospital first. Then they have to go back down. They have to go back through the roundabout, through all the traffic, then go up Maroon Creek. It took me 45 minutes to get there. The next time I was going up there that same time of day, I just walked the whole way from here clear to the rec center in less time than it took me on that previous trip on the Raftabus, because there's just too darn many cars on the road and everyone needs to ride the bus more or ride your bicycle or walk as really good alternatives to solving our transportation issues. So everybody, let's get some change in habits and as much as you're able. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve.
I'm getting studded snow tires for my bicycle. Actually, it's
my
more
God.
likely I'm just going to leave it parked for the winter. Kelly.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody who voted in this election. I know there were some challenges to receiving ballots and returning ballots and getting through the snow yesterday to cast a ballot. And it's, I think, the most important thing we can do as Americans. And so I really appreciate everyone for that effort. And I want to appreciate everyone for supporting the ballot measure on 1A to create a new affordable housing fund that's dedicated in the county and hopefully move us closer to being a community where our sheriff's deputies and child care workers are able to live in it along with us. And then I just want to read this poem that I received from a colleague today that is attributed to a minister in Milwaukee called Venice Williams. And I think it applies regardless of how you voted in the election. It says, "You are awakening to the same country you fell asleep to, the very same country. Pull yourself together. And when you see me, do not ask me, what do we do now? How do we get through the next 4 years? Some of my ancestors dealt with at least 400 years of this under worse conditions. Continue to do the work. Continue to build bridges, not walls. Continue to lead with compassion. Continue the demanding work of liberation for all. Continue to dismantle broken systems, large and small. Continue to set the best example for the children. Continue to be a vessel of nourishing joy. Continue right where you are, right where you live, into your days. Do so in the name of the Creator, who expects nothing less from each of us. And if you are not continuing all of the above in community, partnership, collaboration, what is it you have been doing? What is it you are waiting for?" And that gave me a lot of calm and
That's a great,
inspiration.
that's
It's
great.
a nice one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Apropos. Francie?
Sorry. Yeah, I also wanted to to thank the people who supported me for the last few months. But I wanted to recommend, this is partly to the media, that all the candidates up for election, whether they're opposed or not, should be part of Squirm Night. They should be have articles about them in the paper. It shouldn't be a one-liner at the end of the article, because I think all the voters deserve to know where the commissioners stand, whether they're opposed or not. So just a suggestion, I think, to make it a little more educational for the voters. And I think we talked about this a few months ago, but I saw a statistic like, I think it's over 50% of local government offices are uncontested because people don't want to step up to take the jobs. And so a lot of people get elected over and over and over again without ever having to explain themselves to voters. So just a thought. So thank you to everyone who voted for anybody, and especially to my supporters. I really appreciated it.
She's talking about Jeffrey.
Who I just wanted to acknowledge, who is in the room here, our new commissioner-elect, Jeffrey Woodruff, that will be replacing the distinguished Steve Child when he terms out in January. And thank Jeffrey for knocking on doors with me and introducing himself to voters in Pitkin County, and attending many of these meetings in recent months to get prepped for the job.
Steve?
So yeah, I should extend congratulations to Jeffrey. Now, I had a different situation when I was running, because we started out with 4 people going for the open seat. And so you didn't have to go through all the brain damage and the angst of having to do well in the primary and again in the general election to get elected. But I hope that you have a really successful time as a county commissioner and can be very productive, as I feel like I've done really good things here.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome, Jeffrey. I'm just going to give you a chance, Patty. Do you want to come back to anything else you want to say?
No, just Jeffrey and I have spent a lot of time together in the last couple of months. I've been encouraging him to not attend so many meetings, because I've been warning him when he takes office, he's going to be attending a lot more meetings. But he has been determined to bring himself up to speed and participate. And we've had a lot of fun, and I've gotten to know him really well, and he's gotten to know me and pretty much my entire family. So I think if anybody's prepared to take on this job and to fill shoes that are a wee bit bigger than yours, I have to say, I think it's Jeffrey. So we can't wait. We don't want to see Steve go, but
If I could add one more thing.
Please.
Now, Jeffrey, when I was first elected, I was on an airplane going to St. John's in the Virgin Islands on this day, the day after election.
That's a good
So
plan.
sometimes
We knew he
you
was
do
brilliant.
have to take a vacation and go kick back a little bit, but
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. I just wanted to share that this morning we had an executive session where the FBO lease was part of the conversation. And I wanted just to, for the record, I'm recused from FBO conversations until that contract is completed or discussed fully. So I wasn't part of that. I happen to be at CMC, where I'm on an advisory board for CMC. And the conversation that came up was, where do we go from here for CMC? And I just brought up, and David Baugh was there, and he said, they've kind of suspended civics classes and civics education back in 1982. And maybe it's time to start bringing civics back. And I had been proposing the Bill of Obligations as a course, or a course in what does it mean to be a citizen of a country like ours. I think it's high time we get back to that. And then it moved on to CMC could be more useful, perhaps to helping train civil servants who could step into jobs. We know how hard it is to fill positions, especially with locals who are in the Upper Valley. So it was a really interesting conversation. It kind of ties into that. I'm hoping that they take on some of this civics sort of education, and there's talk about doing it in the school as well. Let's see, what else did I have here on that? That's it.
Greg, I've been remiss.
Patty.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
He got reelected.
I forgot he got reelected too.
And it's embarrassing. I have to say, I agree with Francie. Last time I ran unopposed, I actually had to come in and do a grassroots session with Reed Howie, and I really missed it this year. I called him and said, Reed, where were you? Like, what, and then last night they actually had their conversations, and Jeffrey was invited to go, and I didn't know about it, or I wasn't. So I wasn't even there.
Last night?
At the grassroots did an election thing.
Francie's going.
So I was thinking, wow, I guess I've kept my head down so far. Nobody even knows I'm still here.
So your next time you run for re-election in 4 years.
Nope, won't be. This is my last
I was going to
term.
say we'll make sure you have.
So I just want y'all to know I have a mandate. I could walk down the middle of. I'm not even going to say that.
Don't even go there.
All right, looking forward to the next 4 years. Thank you all. I appreciate the support the community has, but I also suspect there's a high degree of, is it apathy or a desire not to be involved or to get involved? And that is a travesty in my mind, and I can't say I'm proud of running unelected.
Uncontested.
Uncontested, unelected. Running unelected is the same thing. Look forward to that next time. I'm going to take us to the consent items, single reading. We've got the minutes of October 23rd. Does anyone want to make a motion or bring anything up?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Kelly and Francie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, individual consideration items, single reading. This is a consideration of an application submitted by Mind Springs Health for issuance of a secure transportation license. This is something we have been talking about, and Jeanette's here to fill us in. Thanks.
I guess it's on. Hi, Jeanette Jones, County Manager's Office. And this is an application by Mind Springs Health, who recently contacted Pitkin County to be licensed to provide secure transportation services in Pitkin County. The state of Colorado adopted House Bill 21-1085 in June of 2021. Creating a regulatory and service system to provide public or private secure transportation services to individuals experiencing a behavioral health crisis. Excuse me. The bill identified counties as licensing agent for this service. I believe Hans Lutgring was going to be here with us today.
All right,
but
come on
maybe
down.
He's caught it. Oh, here he is. Okay.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
commissioners.
So I will introduce Hans Lutgring, and thank you for coming and joining us. And he's ready to give you a little presentation on their services.
Great, thanks. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. And I've got some support back here with Kayla, our departing
Team over
Kayla, unfortunately. But and my name is Hans Lutgring, and I am the Regional Outreach Director for Mind Springs Health. And you guys will probably be seeing a little bit more of me as we make sure that we have some leadership and support for our outpatient team and the PAC team up here in Pitkin County with Kayla's departure later this month. We will miss her dearly. I am familiar to Pitkin County, to Aspen. I'm kind of housed out of Glenwood, but I have family between here and Glenwood. My sister and brother-in-law are here in town. My aunt's been here since 1970 and worked for community health for 30 years, and I raised my daughter here in the Valley. And I believe that the Valley is certainly connected, especially for behavioral health services. So specifically for what we're here to discuss, we are requesting that Pickens County grant us the license for the secure behavioral health transport. And I believe this to be potentially an incredible asset to Pickens County, to law enforcement, and to certainly reduce the stress upon Aspen Valley Hospital's emergency department and potentially paramedics as well. We recently opened our new medically managed withdrawal management facility in Glenwood Springs, which certainly has a regional pull on it, and I believe to be, ultimately a complement to the 3.2 level social setting withdrawal management that exists here with Recovery Resources and Janelle's team. For the secure transport piece, we currently have secure behavioral health transport licenses in Garfield County, in Mesa County, and Delta County. So the problem is despite me saying that Roaring Fork Valley is connected, we obviously cross multiple counties when we are doing business sometimes. And we recently had a conversation with Chief Lynn and some other law enforcement officers about just kind of the complications of not having the ability to have our secure transport team come up here to the county, and kind of joked about, well, yeah, you can meet us at the county line, and we could then take, someone who was either struggling with substance use and needed to go to withdrawal management, or potentially was on an M1 hold and needed to go to West Springs Psychiatric Inpatient Hospital. So, we are in the process of really getting reciprocal licenses for all of the counties in the area that we really serve, which is the regional area. Eagle County is certainly is next on our list, but we would love for Pickens County to, I think, just see maybe the wisdom and benefit only of having a behavioral health secure transportation, service that is going to be housed out of the Glenwood office. So we have Teresa, who runs our secure transport program, and Juan, who's one of our direct boots on the grounds transport team members here as well. And they're certainly the subject matter experts on this. But I think that really what this will do is will complement existing Citadel license, but we will be able to really efficiently and quickly get to Pickens County when there needs to be someone either transported to West Springs Hospital or to Glenwood Springs withdrawal management, higher levels of care, whether they're struggling with substance use or mental health services. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. We're still in kind of a soft go live. Our behavioral health secure transport team right now is available from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Well, more accurately 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Because they come from Junction and then house out of Glenwood right now 6 days a week. We're still recruiting, building that into what will be a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour program, so that there is no gaps in the availability of the service. Questions? I'm going to stop talking.
Kelly, go ahead.
You're doing great.
Okay.
I was just going to say, and I'm looking at John Peacock also, we haven't had many conversations about Mine Springs lately, but it's nice to have you doing this. And it seems like Mine Springs and West Springs are a going concern, was a concern for us. And so I don't know if we need an update on that right now, but it's good to see you're in action, and I would certainly support this, but other comments from the board?
I'm curious, given that we have a detox up valley here, how often are we transporting people to a different detox facility? I can understand the M1 hold and the mental health crisis need, but I'm wondering about the detox use of your facility as opposed to our facility from Pickens County.
So we've been, I've got some information certainly to share with you guys, and I was intentional about saying that our medically managed facility is a complement to Recovery Resources and that social setting withdrawal management. Since opening our withdrawal management facility in Glenwood, between Aspen and Snowmass, Pickens County residents have been the highest utilizers of our 3.7 medically managed facility in Glenwood. And I think that speaks to the reality that it's a needed regional resource. I think that there's ultimately probably plenty of, unfortunately, I think that there's unfortunately plenty of volume for both recovery resources, social setting, and our medically managed. And I think likely we're going to be getting the more highly acute situations. The benefit of the 3.7 level, and that's just an ASAM designation saying that we're medically managed, is that law enforcement or secure transport or paramedics or families or individuals can show up at our doors and we do the medical clearance there. They don't have to go to Aspen Valley Hospital's emergency department and get medically cleared. So that's the benefit of us having that 3.7 level designation, is it really takes a lot of stress off of the emergency department. And I want to be really clear that that's an additional impact in a positive way for having the secure transport license in Pitkin County, is that clients who need to either go to the West Springs for psychiatric stabilization or to withdrawal management don't have to sit unnecessarily long in that emergency department, that we can dispatch our secure transport team from Glenwood and get them where they need to go. So it from the withdrawal management standpoint, that's reducing, I think, overuse of maybe recovery resources 3.2, withdrawal management. And let me be really clear also about another feature of our withdrawal management facility is we've been working on this project for more than 5 years as a region, as a community, to bring withdrawal management back to the region. And as we kind of went through that process, we understood that we needed to design the program so that the benefit and the supports and the case management didn't just begin and end at the doors of the program, of the facility. And so we've been very intentional about not just like building, hopefully, behavioral health secure transport, but also having our mobile recovery team attached to that program. And what that is it's professional peer specialists and case managers. And peer specialists, for those of you who don't know, are people with lived experience. They're certainly part of our interdisciplinary approach to recovery and treatment that are invaluable to us. And so those people can either engage with clients who are struggling with substance use before they need withdrawal management, or as they progress through the program, and then we then have them very community facing, return them back to the community, to connect them to resources, to get them set up for outpatient appointments, to get them into residential treatment. And the reason I say this is it's really important. The national average for detoxes, withdrawal management, kind of use those terms synonymously, but the average successful follow-up with outpatient treatment, residential treatment, services outside of detox is about 35%. Since we've opened, we are averaging an 80% successful connection to outpatient services, residential services, treatment services of some kind. So that program is really, really, really working. And so that's a significant benefit of the Glenwood Springs facility, not just that it's medically managed, we can do our med clearances and reduce stress on the EDs, but that follow-up support into the community.
How long are you tracking those patients for?
It depends. It depends on if we have successful transitions, directly to residential. We have a lot of latitude from a recovery and a treatment standpoint to make those decisions that are client specific, so that we can spend a lot of time with them. That's another benefit of that program, with the peers who can connect with someone in a way about recovery, since they're at a point in their recovery where they're not just stable, but they're able to professionalize that lived experience to connect with people. So it may be a really, really long time sometimes for clients that are struggling with substance use, that need those follow-up contacts that are not immediately connected into treatment, but they have that support to hopefully fourth, fifth, sixth contact, have a conversation about the hope of recovery.
It takes a long time.
Yep.
Can I keep us moving?
I just have another question, but whenever you want to come back.
Short answer?
Well, I was wondering if our behavioral health team had any opportunity to weigh in on this at all, if there's any concern.
Yeah, so we're actually, Garfield County has reached out again to have a conversation now that the detox has been opened. And so we're looking at data right now. So what we're coming to understand is that we do have a number, as has been said, we have a number of folks from Pickens County being referred down to Glenwood. And then it looks like we have a number of self-referrals from Garfield County into our social detox. So we're trying to understand how the system actually works together, and to open a conversation with our funders group up here about how do we kind of integrate and fund something that's working for us systemically. We haven't coordinated in that fashion yet, but those conversations are happening. And matter of fact, I just saw an email exchange of data yesterday, and I know we're trying to collect a little bit more.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have a really quick.
Quick question.
So if you have a license in Pitkin, you don't want to have yet in Eagle, how do you drive through Eagle?
Eagle's next on our list.
So you have to stop, go around.
It's not.
Go around.
It won't be complete to answer your question.
Okay.
We won't be able to have that pathway until we get Eagle on board too. But I don't
So if you
anticipate
need
that
any
being
help
an issue.
getting
East-
Eagle
that'd
on
be great.
board.
Watson Divide,
East Cypress
West,
Creek,
East Cypress.
West Cypress Creek, go over down Prince Creek Road, and then you end
We
up
got a
in
route for you.
Garfield County, so you miss Eagle completely.
Awesome.
Were you going to make a motion, Steve?
I would make a motion. I opened my mouth too soon. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application by Mind Springs Health for issuance of a secure transportation license.
I'll second.
Second, I'm going to call it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to see all of you.
Great.
Thank you
Hans,
all.
nice to meet you. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming
you
in. Kayla, thank you for everything you've done, and happy travels wherever you're headed next.
Here, you guys will see me again.
Oh, okay. You're just moving a desk or something, maybe. Okay, great. Thank you for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to come back and provide you more general updates on the hospital and
Yeah,
kind of
it'd
what's
be
happening
fun
with
just to get
MySpace.
it at some point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Great. After budget season, right.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, up next, individual consideration items, first reading set for public hearings on November 20th. Here goes a long list. This is a resolution approving and authorizing the chair to sign an intergovernmental agreement with Eagle, Garfield, Grand, Jackson, Moffett, Rio Blanco, Routt, and Summit counties for the Community Development Block Grant Project. Are they all here? Where are they all?
Me.
Just
We
you,
got
Jeanette, it's just
Anita
you.
online.
Yeah, we've
I
got.
thought it was going to be like an
believe we've
EOTC
got-
meeting.
Pardon?
I thought it would be like the EOTC, you get them all here. Okay, take it away.
Okay, yes, thank you, Greg. This is a resolution approving a grant agreement and an intergovernmental agreement with 9 counties of the Region 11 and 12 Business Loan Fund acting through Eagle County for the purpose of business loan funding. And I believe Anita Cameron is with us virtually.
Online, yeah, let's see if she's there.
I'll give you just
Rosa?
a brief. Anita and I work very closely and have for many, many years with Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. Anita does an amazing job and is always on top of this issue and helping people get small business loans, et cetera, to increase the economic opportunities in our region.
Great, thanks, Patty. Good to have that connection. So,
I believe we found her.
did we
didn't
find
we?
Anita? You're
Yeah.
there? Can you hear us?
Anita was in Waldron
she is.
County
Oh, you're muted.
yesterday, and that's a long ways away. And we spoke yesterday morning. Hi, Anita. And I told her, don't try traveling over here. The weather's going to be terrible. So she's ready to give a short presentation. And then one correction to the AIS, Greg, is we would like the motion to continue or to set the second reading and public hearing on December 4th.
Thank you,
So we'll
Jeanette.
move
And
that.
so that's
Okay,
one
we'll have that in the
correction.
motion.
So I'll turn it over to Anita and let her give her presentation to you all.
Welcome, Anita. You can hear us, I think? I don't know if we can hear you.
Is she muted over on her side?
I think you're muted still. Uh-oh, this may be a really short presentation. We don't have your audio here, but we're working on it. Let's see if it's on this end. Give us a second here. Is the volume up? Nope. Okay, now try it.
Okay,
You're there. Yay, it worked.
all right,
Yay-hoo.
thank you. Yes, thanks for saving me the snowy trip. So for 11 and a half years, I have been the director of the Northwest Loan Fund, which comes under the umbrella of the Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. I make business loans in these 9 Northwest counties of Colorado. And every approximately 5 years, which this is, I need to apply for a new grant. So I am asking you to sign on, to approve to sign on the grant application and the intergovernmental agreement with the other 8 counties. As Jeanette explained, Eagle County is the lead county. They carry the biggest load and take care of the financial pass-throughs on the loan fund, but I do need for everyone to join in on the application and the intergovernmental. When I see you on December 4th, I will do a short presentation on what has been accomplished in the last 11 and a half years. And I will also share with you some of the businesses that have been funded in Pitkin County. In addition to the loans back in 2021, the Northwest Loan Fund was also responsible for getting $1.7 million in grant money out to businesses that were suffering with the COVID issues of being closed, etc. And that was second only to the Denver metro area. So pretty proud of helping our businesses with that.
That's impressive. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I look forward to hearing more on December 4th. Questions? Kelly?
I just would note that this is set for public hearing on November 20th.
Yeah,
We're amending it to
We're amending
move it to the
in the
4th.
motion, we will, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions or motions?
I'll just once again say, Anita, you do an amazing job, and I appreciate your attention to detail, and your passion and enthusiasm for this program is amazing.
Thank you very much.
Where
It
are
is
you right now? Are you in, where's your office?
Well, my home office is in Golden. So, and I've owned my home in Golden for 20 years, probably before I accepted this position. So we agreed way back then that I would work remotely, but on average, I'm out in the territory every couple weeks, spending 2 or 3 days at a time out.
That sounds really nice. You're an early remote worker with cool destinations. Thank
Absolutely right.
you. Patty?
I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the chair to sign the Colorado Development Block Grant application and an IGA with 8 other counties other than Pitkin for the purpose of business loans funded by a community development block grant. It's my understanding, since it's been noticed for the 20th for the public hearing, we'll post it for the 20th and
We
then
noticed
continue
for-
it on the 20th to the 4th.
We were able to catch the noticing, so it's noticed for December 4th.
So we're good. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Was that a motion?
That was my
I'll
motion.
second the motion.
Got a second from Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you, Anita. See you again soon. Thanks, Jeanette.
That's all I have.
All right. And
See ya.
she's off. Okay, up next, Dan Fallon's
Thanks,
coming
Jeanette.
in. We have a resolution approving a third amendment to a contract with the Colorado Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Admin, providing funding for jail-based behavioral services. Welcome.
Good afternoon. So this is a third contract. I know when I came to you to get the original extension approved, they only had a certain amount of funding, but they reached back out to us a couple months ago and said they had found additional funding. So this is just coming to you to request the additional $7,500 for the rest of this year.
Sounds pretty
That's easy.
straightforward. That sounds pretty easy.
So what's the total amount of funding?
It would be $182,500.
Great, with the additional. Thanks.
Great. Other questions, comments, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution which approves a third amendment to a contract with the Colorado Department of Human Services, Behavioral Health Administration, providing funding for jail-based behavioral services.
And this is set for public hearing on November 20th.
I'll second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for
Thank you
coming
very
in,
much.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, next item is a resolution approving and authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Basalt to fund the construction of Stotts Mill Child Care Facility. Ashley's here.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, good afternoon.
We're getting it done.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley Pearl, Resiliency and Housing Director for Picken County, and I'm here to not talk about housing. I'm here to talk about childcare and the final actions that are required by the board to assign our remaining ARPA dollars. So American Rescue Plan Act, that's what ARPA stands for. We've talked about them, I don't know how many times at this point. I was last in front of you talking about ARPA dollars in July of this summer. At that point, we had around $500,000 remaining in our ARPA funds. As a reminder, they need to be assigned by the end of this year and fully spent by the end of 2026. So in July, at a work session, the board looked at the remaining $500,000 and assigned it to 3 places. One of those is to extend the staff stipend program to support childcare professionals. That is actually a contract that gets signed by John with the Aspen Community Foundation, so that won't come in front of the board. But as a reminder, that is to extend the stipend into 2025 for a 75% amount, and then into 2026 for a 50% amount of what we're funding now.
How much was that?
The total right now is $1,500 a quarter, so $6,000 a year
Per person.
per person.
I mean, how much was our allocation for that?
Overall, it ends up being around $1.5 million
Okay, great,
over
thanks.
the course of 4 years for 102 staff members right now. And then what the other 2 decisions the board decided, which are in front of you today, is to give an additional $200,000 to the town of Basalt to support the construction of the Stotts Mill Child Care Facility, which we'll talk about first. And then the second one was to give $208,000 to the town of Snowmass Village to support a remodel and reconstruction of the Little Red Schoolhouse Child Care Facility. So we will start with the Stotts Mill facility, and then I think the next one after that is with town of Snowmass Village. So last year, the board gave a grant to the town of Basalt for $250,000 to support the Stotts Mill Child Care Facility. And part of that was general fund dollars and part of that was ARPA funding. And so in exchange, the Stotts Mill Center is now up and running. It's at full capacity at around 45 children being served across 4 different rooms. I know Steve and I were both at the grand opening in this fall. It's a beautiful facility. The families were ecstatic. The staff, it's fully staffed up, and it's being run by the Blue Lake Preschool. So, and it's really incorporated well into the community up there at Stotts Mills. So very exciting. We did give $250,000 towards the construction of that, which was also a matching grant for the $800,000 grant that the town brought in to support it. And in exchange for our contribution, we got a new childcare facility in the valley, but we also received 11 priority spots for children of Picken County employees for a term of 5 years. As of today, I know that we have 3 children of Picken County employees actively going to Stotts Mill and using that priority access that the board got for us so that we can have that benefit for our employees. I've heard that we have about 20 interested employees in addition to that are either considering starting a family or considering moving their child. And it is full the enrollment is full right now. But in addition to getting those 11 priority spots, if one of our employees were to call today, they get bumped to the top of the wait list so that when a spot becomes available, they're first in line, which is, as someone who's gone through getting a child into daycare in the valley, it's a huge benefit still to be top of the list. So that's our current situation in exchange for $250,000. It's 11 spots for 5 years. When Town of Basalt came to you all in July, they asked for an additional $200,000. It's kind of last in money to make the final project all work out. And the board did commit that remaining ARPA money, or at a work session said that they would give it. So, and at the time you asked Town of Basalt staff if you could get anything in return. And so the IGA that's in front of you today says that we will grant the Town of Basalt $200,000 of ARPA funding. And in exchange, we will get those 11 spots extended to 10 years of timeline. We didn't think we needed 22 spots. We didn't talk about doubling them. That seemed greedy, and we don't have that much of a need. But extending it beyond that 5 years did seem like something that would really benefit our employees. So that's what's in the IGA in front of you, $200,000 grant to Town of Basalt, and to support the last in dollars to make Stotts Mill a reality and get a little bit of a benefit for our employees in exchange. Rosa, I don't know if Michelle Tebow from Town of Basalt is on. She is.
Oh, great.
Could we allow her to speak just so she can give you the Town of Basalt perspective?
Hi, Michelle. Are you there? Here she comes.
Hello.
Hi,
Nice to
thanks
see
for being
you.
here.
Thank you so much. And Ashley summed it up beautifully. We are super excited. The facility is up and running. We are also have been awarded a core grant for energy efficiency on the building. And so lots of great publicity is going out just about the child care center in general. I've also been interviewed from EPIC, our partners with the state who facilitated the grant. And kudos to Picken County and the Town of Basalt for creating this partnership that they're starting to use as a demonstration project, frankly, for other child care centers throughout the Front Range. So, yeah, thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Questions from the board? Comments? Patty?
So we have 8 remaining spots that are a priority for future possibilities. Do we know how long it might take for somebody who's like at the top of the list? It just depends on what level they want to come in and how they transition in and out, probably.
Yeah, it's run by the Stotts Mill Center is run by the Blue Lake Preschool,
Right.
who has 2 other locations in the valley. So I think they do see a bunch of movement. They see a lot of movement because you may start your child in an infant room at one and want to move to the different center as your family changes. So I think that even though daycare lists continue to be over 100 people long throughout the valley, we're giving our employees the best chance at trying to find something closer to where they might work up here, and really we're trying out a model because there hasn't been a childcare center this large in the Mid-Valley really ever. We've had a couple different options, but this is a pretty big center for this location, and seeing who it's used by and how it works with everybody's different commuting and kind of lifestyle timelines and things like that.
Any opportunity for them to get into one of the other Blue Lake child cares?
That is not how the IGA is written.
I'm just trying to find a way because I know how hard it is to get kids in. Have there been any issues with, you might not know the answer to this, but with the traffic? Because, the traffic flow when school starts coming up and down South Side, since I work at that corner and see it, can be horrendous.
Michelle might be able to speak to any impacts they've been seeing.
Yeah, so far we have not heard anything. So I think luckily maybe the daycare, just fits in appropriately. And we know that we do have a couple of actual residents from Stotts Mill who have been able to enroll their children right there. So a couple less travel trips.
That's
maybe.
Great. And that whole neighborhood over there is great. So maybe we'll see more coming in through Southside housing too. That would be great. Thank you.
Great. Other comments or questions? I just wanted to say, Michelle, it's exciting. Thank you for bringing up CORE and CORE's participation. It's a wonderful building, and it'll be great to see how it works for everybody and getting these kids started in an energy efficient and comfortable way.
And Francie wants to go spend a day there with 45 small children.
Yeah,
48.
yeah.
It's 48.
48?
I'd take a tour. Whenever if they're doing a tour, let us know. If another tour comes along, I'd love to just see it in action sometime. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the chair to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Basalt to fund the construction of the Stotts Mill Child Care Facility. The second,
We
Grant.
have a second from Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And it's
Thank
set
you.
for public hearing on November 20th.
Thank you for that. And Michelle, thanks for coming, and we'll see you again.
My pleasure, thank you.
Take care. Okay, up next is the reso approving and authorizing the chair to sign a IGA with the town of Snowmass Village to support the redevelopment of the Little Red Schoolhouse childcare facility. Ashley.
Hi again. So this is a new IGA, whereas the one we just did was a second IGA to give the town of Basalt more money. This is a new IGA with the town of Snowmass Village to support their redevelopment of the Little Red Schoolhouse. And Rosa, just to give you a heads up, I do believe Greg LeBlanc from Town of Snowmass Village is on. So this was brought to you again in July by me when we were talking about ARPA. And then Greg and Clint and I think somebody else from the Town of Snowmass Village was here in person a couple months or a couple weeks later in August to talk about this project. So you've heard about the survey that the Town of Snowmass Village did around the different daycare needs of the community and of their workforce. They found that there was way more of a need than they had spaces available. The Little Red Schoolhouse is on land and is a building that the Town of Snowmass Village owns. They then hire an operator, which is currently Woody Creek Kids, to operate the space. It's not great. As someone who's sent my children there and very appreciative of the care they got, the actual buildings are not in great shape. They're definitely aging. They need some upgrades. And so I think the town, when looking at putting upgrades into that, looked at the possibility to expand it to provide more spaces. So the town came to us and asked if we could support that. At the time, you said that we wanted to give the remaining $208,000 from ARPA towards the project, and then you also wanted to contribute in-kind grant support for the town to apply for upcoming opportunities from the state. So I do believe as soon as maybe today, there will be a grant application that goes live from the Department of Early Childhood at the state of Colorado that could potentially fund this program. So the thought was that we sign an IGA now to support the initial program, give a show of partnership to the town, and then support them in moving forward with grant applications. And if they do get awarded or needs matching dollars, the board had previously invited them to come back to talk about a potential additional contribution in the form of matching dollars for any grant. But we thought we'd do this IGA now because the money has to be committed by the end of the year or else we lose it. And we're not entirely sure when the grant applications are going to come out and when the town can get back in front of you. So that's what's in front of you today.
Great, thank you. Francie.
No, Greg, huh?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Ashley, for the work you've put into spending our ARPA funds. You've done an amazing job bringing us the alternatives to choose from, and just wanted to thank you for that hard work.
Thanks, Francie. Yeah, it's exciting.
Patty.
Yeah, did we have a cap on the monies for matching? Didn't we? Did we say unlimited amounts of money for matching?
You had kind of toyed with doubling the so there's $208,000. You had said kind of maybe we go up to $400,000, so an additional $200,000. But we had tried to leave it, open so that at least they could come back and present any opportunities.
So that
to you all.
$200,000 would come out of the general fund. I love that. Thanks.
Steve.
I was just thinking about the Little Red Schoolhouse, and I believe that's where Hilda Anderson was the teacher in the one-room schoolhouse back in the day when that was the public school. And it just flashed on that's the same building, the same location we're talking about. So that to me gives it more special meaning, thinking of Hilda Anderson, who taught whole generations of kids in Aspen.
She was my 7th grade teacher. And she was an old lady then.
She drove her car out to Snowmass every day too, Steve.
Yeah, she was a wonderful, wonderful person.
Well, there wasn't a raffle.
Yeah, the Little Red Schoolhouse has such incredible history, but also that underscores the age of the building. It's an original, I don't know what year it was actually built, I'm sure somebody knows, but it's a mining era building or early ranching era building. So I understand that. The estimated project cost is $8 million. We're putting in a couple $100,000, maybe that'll double, but that's nowhere near what they need. Are they expecting all of it to come from a yet to be delivered grant, or have they raised some of that already? Can you tell us a little bit about their funding and the likelihood?
My understanding is that the bulk of the funding is allocated for 2025 in the Town of Snowmass Village capital budget.
Okay.
So they are contributing the bulk of it and then looking for partnerships as they can. So obviously we've encouraged them to reach out to CORE for any sort of energy efficiency upgrades similar to Stotts Mill. We're giving a little bit, their partnership opportunities they see as a bit smaller just because they're in Snowmass, and so it's serving a more discrete population. So of course they came to us first, but hoping to pair their capital 2025 budget with some real dollars from the state.
Great, thank you for that. And it's good to know CORE is at work there as well, at least in discussions. And the people who use the facility could be commuters, they could be locals, so we're not sure who all's going to be in there, I guess. They probably have a waiting list a mile long.
Probably. They did a survey, and so I think they have some data that was attached to a previous packet of the need and how this would meet some of that need.
Kelly.
I just would say some of the feedback I've gotten with Little Red is the hours can be really tricky for working parents because of their day is a bit shorter than what a typical work day is, and a bit shorter than what other childcares offer. So to get your kid by 4 o'clock can be really tough. So I don't know if that's something that
They don't have after hours available?
So I don't know if that is something that becomes a point of discussion when we consider a monetary.
They did that at the Yellow Brick for a while too, and it was really difficult. They changed it back, I believe.
It was tough.
They can't just turn them loose on the golf course or something.
With leashes.
Not with the
Attached
coyotes
to
out
trees.
there, the mountain
Foxes and
lions.
coyotes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking
Bait.
for a motion.
I'll move to approve the resolution of the BoCC approving and authorizing the chair to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Snowmass Village to support the redevelopment of the Little Red Schoolhouse Child Care Facility.
Second reading November 20th.
I'll second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you,
Okay.
Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. Well done.
Thanks a lot, Ashley.
Okay, Diane is in the house. This is a resolution
We're on to the airport part
setting
of the
initial
day.
airport
we're
rates
doing
and
the airport
charges
for the
for
rest of-
2025.
All these numbers.
Dan and Diane, come on down.
Airport.
When I read the packet,
Airport
seeing it the
overrun
second time, not so
You
much.
two again.
Yeah, you might want to get used to it today. Yeah.
I have a feeling
I
we're
think
going
we're
to
going
be
to
seeing
get
more
used to
of
it
you.
for
We're
like the next 10
delighted.
years.
Exactly. Well, good afternoon. Dan Bartholomew, Airport Director, and
Diane Jackson, Deputy.
we're also joined by Brian Elliott. I believe he's online. He had some travel glitches. He was hoping to be here, but
Trouble getting in?
I'm
Fine?
not sure exactly what went wrong. I was afraid to pry, but choose the case with Brian. So on October,
Dry, quiet.
and I don't know if there's a possibly a Jason App or a Luke Lejeune on there as well. Might be. Brian, is it just you?
Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you
Yeah.
for allowing me to join your meeting.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I believe it's just I'll be representing Rakonda this afternoon. Jason and Luke, I believe, are in other meetings. So
Okay.
I knew we wouldn't see you in person again after we gave you such a hard time last time. I'm not
He
surprised.
might have been licking his wounds. That's possible.
been to the woodshed more than a few times.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking a
Especially since
chance
he
on
didn't
us.
know how yesterday was going to come out. So he was really keeping his distance.
Okay.
So on October 22nd at the work session, we brought to you some proposed rates and charges, which is every year we put together rates and charges based on our budget that's anticipated for both terminal terminal expenses and also airfield expenses, and we put those into various cost centers. So terminal is separate than the airfield. The airfield primarily gets put into landing fees, where terminal rents are more square footage space charges for use of the terminal. What we presented to you on October 22nd was what we tried to do is, because this year there's a moratorium, in 2025 I should say, there's going to be a moratorium on FAA grants for maintenance of the airfield pavement. So in order to offset that somewhat to landing fees, we applied some airport fund balance in addition to some airport revenue to offset those costs, which in turn slightly lowered the landing fees compared to 2024. The board at that time asked us to go back and review 3 additional scenarios. One would be how much offset would be required to maintain the landing fees that are experienced in 2024. Another scenario was how could we cut in half the amount, and what would the ramifications to our landing fees be if we cut that fund balance? The additional airport revenue towards the landing fees, and then a final option was if we removed any inclusion of airport fund balance and revenue towards the landing fees. And Brian can run you through those options and what the scenarios resulted in. In addition, I think we didn't have an opportunity to really discuss terminal rates and charges, so the rent on a square footage basis to the individuals that occupy our terminal. I think he was going to begin with that, just to go through that. Those costs are not impacted by what happens on the airfield. So,
Got it. Okay. So we're starting with terminal rent.
yeah, just to get
Got
past
it.
that,
Okay.
we didn't have a chance.
We're going to start out easy on you, Brian.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join. Stan mentioned this is a follow-on to your work session held several weeks ago. And we would like to begin just with the calculation of the proposed FY 2025 recommended terminal rental rate. You see on this slide, again, the buildup of the requirement, which is what's necessary to provide the terminal, both from an operating expense standpoint, amortization, and programmed small capital projects for FY 25. So you'll see that just shy of $6.4 million is anticipated for that expense, for the expenses in the terminal in 2025. The methodology that's been historically used for the airport is to take that total requirement and divide it by total usable space in the terminal. So that's currently at 49,270 square feet. And the resulting rental rate for the airlines is, based on that divisor, is just shy of $130 per square foot. That's about 12% greater than the budget amount for the current fiscal year, both interior and exterior. So when we talk about the exterior space, that's the unheated, basically the unheated space that's located behind the ticket counters for the baggage makeup for the airlines. So that rate would be $43.18 and also increased 12%. There's also rates for seasonal. I think we talked about that classification of carrier the last time. Basically, those are airlines that fly less than annually or would come in on a charter basis. Again, not aware of any current carrier that fits that scenario, but the rates would be established by the board and carry forward if there were airlines to come into that category. So of the 49,000, roughly just shy of 30,000 square feet is leased to the airlines, United, American, and Delta. And the resulting rental rates that the airlines would pay would be just shy of $2.8 million for interior space, $366,000 roughly for the exterior space, or for a total anticipated revenue for 2025 of $3.165 million.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Patty has a
I
question.
should know the answer, but I think the answer I know has changed. What is the total square footage of interior at our terminal?
I believe it is somewhere about 64,000 feet, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
used to be 55 to 58, so I think we've added on some, since I remember that old number.
We have converted some space, the airport office space over, which wouldn't have
Right,
been charged
right.
at the same rate, things like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Just a question about the 12%
you.
increase. Is that, how did we arrive at that percentage?
Unfortunately, it's based on what we anticipate the break even of maintaining that facility moving forward. And that, to be honest, I mean, that facility is aging quite a bit. So we're looking at some significant possible maintenance items, HVAC, utilities, those types of things that are really starting to hit us with that facility now.
And is that's as accounting for what replacement or maintenance costs will be, and plus inflation, I guess, or
correct for those
construction
costs.
inflation.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And can I add something? What about if there happens to be future TSA space requirements that we don't know yet, because we don't know what that obligation may or may not be, or how much square footage they may be asking? So that'll be upcoming, maybe?
Unfortunately for the existing terminal, that's just not an option. To create additional space would be probably a bit of a building code issue. Plus, we'd be pushing into areas that are structural at that point. We just cannot add on to the existing
So it'd be, rather than changing the configuration of the interior now, it would be adding on more square footage.
We would have to do it as a separate add-on, yeah, in which we don't really have space to do at this point.
We don't want to do
either.
that.
No.
No, but sometimes the feds don't like listening to us when we say that.
Kelly.
If we did not want to cause an increase to the airlines, would we be allowed to hold this at 0?
We always have that option. We would have to end up paying, we would have to make up the
Subsidy?
difference. But yes, we always have that option.
I know we were thinking about these things in the next conversation, so I wanted to know how we think
And
about it
isn't-
in this
isn't a
conversation.
separate- This isn't a separate,
know
this is
that we're
part
not
of this.
going to allow.
It's part of the same, it's part of the rates and
Okay.
charges.
Any other questions on this? I'd like to move on to the other rates, just still
Thank you.
trying to pick up on that. Okay, Brian, we're ready to go to the main attraction.
Okay, I think Dan set this up for you, and it's also presented in your agenda item summary, but these are the scenarios that we have since evaluated several weeks ago. The original scenario that was brought to you during the work session is scenario 1. That's the results in a 10% landing fee reduction. That is what has been presented to the 2 GA communities that we've previously held meetings with. Scenario 2 is basically continuing to fund the runway pavement project as in scenario 1, but the discretionary credit that would be used would basically be enough to keep the rates constant with FY 2024. Scenario 3, again, uses fund balance for that pavement project, and it would then take half of scenario 1, or the discretionary credit. So you see scenario 1 is about 2.146 million. Half of that is 1.073. So scenario 3, instead of going to the full 10%, would take about half of that credit. Scenario 4 assumes no use of fund balance and no discretionary credit in that scenario. So those were the 4 that you will ask staff and Recondo to look at the last meeting. The results are presented here, so you can see in the various columns, 1 through 4 scenarios, runway pavement project that would be paid with fund balance. Again, the first 3 scenarios have that assumption built in. The discretionary credit ranges between about 1.073 million to 2.146, and that 2.146 was what was presented at your work session. The scenario 2 is that credit that would need to be applied to keep rates constant over the current fiscal year. Then the next column represents the calculated signatory landing fee with those assumptions built in. And you can see the landing fee would range from $698 for that original scenario to $1822 with no use of of those fund balances or the discretionary credit. The GA landing fee ranges from $8.42 to $19.66. We've added also two other columns, the estimated net revenue at the end of the proposed fiscal year based on budgeted revenues and expenses. You can see that those estimated net revenues range between roughly $6.8 million to about $12.6 million. And then the airline CPE is calculated, excuse me, in the last column, and ranges from $18.59 to $34.56.
Great, thank you. Quick question, then I'll open it up to the rest of the board. Consequences is what I was hoping to understand. Consequences
Sure.
of making the change from your recommendation. What will that actually cost your typical airline passenger, and how do we think it affects fees or ticket prices? I'll put it that way.
You know, it may or may not affect the ticket price. It's hard to say whether they would pass that along to the consumer, although these are per 1,000 pounds of landed weight. So if you, what was the let's say a CRJ, about 60,000 pounds, Mac?
CRJ 700, around 67,000 pounds.
So you multiply this by that.
You can see that range from what was presented at the work session, being about $11 premium, if you will, if there's no subsidy, excuse me, no use of fund balance or the discretionary credit. And that band gets tighter, obviously, with when you're looking at that discretionary credit between that 1.1 million in scenario 3 and the 2.2 million in scenario 1. So it's much tighter, and I would say that doesn't move as much. It still would raise some eyebrows, I think, with the airlines between 1 and 3, but certainly not as much as 4. And I think your general aviation community could have a similar reaction to that growth that would happen in scenario 4.
And we do a chart that does a comparison of like-sized airports of landing fees right here. Our landing fees are already some of the highest in a nation when it comes to a like-sized facility. And this kind of shows you the comparison of those facilities versus what these scenarios would do as well.
775 is what it is now?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
What's the weight? Can I just say, what's the weight of a 175 E175?
70,000 pounds? 75,000?
About 75,000 pounds, yes.
Okay.
So that's my question, is about the weights of the planes.
Mm-hmm.
Even though their rate per 1,000 pounds might be a little bit less, what's the average weight of the planes landing? Or is it the same, or is it tending to go up or go down, or what?
You know, it varies across the board. If you're comparing are you talking about other airport facilities or ours, or?
For ours.
Well, it's per 1,000 pounds. So it depends on the weight of that particular aircraft that comes in and out of here. The weights are pretty steady. The E175 is factored into this, which weighs a little bit more than the CRJ. Mm-hmm. But then you look at the other facilities. I mean, Jackson Hole has a Boeing 757 that comes in there, so a significantly heavier aircraft.
So even though they might be paying less per 1,000, if they're like the ERJ 175 is,
mm-hmm.
they might end up paying more per one of those landing because it weighs more, even though the rate's a little bit less.
Correct. It's proportional. Sure.
Does more damage also.
Sure.
Francie.
Can we see the slide before, please? So the estimated net revenue, is that after subtracting out the discretionary credit?
Yes.
For all those.
It doesn't seem, I mean, if we're gonna get 12,600 with Plan 4, aren't we only taking out like $2 million? Why is the discrepancy so much?
The estimated net revenue is for the airport fund in total. So that's rolling in all of the revenues and expenses for the airport. It is taking into consideration those credits that are being proposed, and you can see that the the band, if you will, between the first three is about a, 600,000, 550 to $600,000 variance. But obviously, no credits are given. Your amount of money at the end of the year that would go to your fund balance is considerably more.
Well, plus you're charging a lot more.
Exactly.
So, Dan, I believe you spoke last time to what you thought the reaction of the airlines and the GA would be to the scenario 4.
Mm-hmm.
You thought there would be quite a hullabaloo.
I would imagine so, because they're looking at other airports as well in comparison to us. And they may look at it from the perspective of the fact that, our pavement is deteriorating and we haven't addressed it yet. And we're passing on that cost to them because of this moratorium. That could be an issue for them.
I see.
Yeah.
Is that the justification for considering lowering the fee?
Exactly. Two things with that. One is to cover the cost of that maintenance that the FAA is not providing this time. But then also,
how does that cover the cost of our maintenance if we're charging less?
No, and then adding to that, we're getting some additional revenue of the airport starting this year, moving forward. It's often the case where you take some additional revenues that you have and offset some of your operating costs with that. So that was the purpose.
And you think that they're expecting a decrease?
Yeah.
Expecting a decrease.
Yeah, I think there were probably, be honest, I mean, everybody's always expecting a decrease, I guess you could say.
But
I'm always
yes,
expecting
an increase.
Given that we are receiving significant more revenue in the future here, I think there is that expectation that pie should be shared a bit.
And then my other question, just to be sure I get this, I understand this, because it seems like it's just hundreds of dollars per landing, right? Each time they land, they're going to be paying a few $100s.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on the aircraft. I mean, you're talking, you put, like Brian said,
I think we
60.
came up with like 800 or something last time, didn't we, Greg? Sort of, cocktail napkin math for the cocktails that we're having here. And so that just seems like such a small amount for a large commercial airline. And I mean, like, how many times a day do they land? Like, one of the airlines lands how many times a day?
Oh, got it. It varies depending on our season. So anytime from like United, I think right now is about 11 flights a day, 11 landings a day, and then they'll move up to in the 20s.
We're still talking less than. Well, I guess it would add up, over the year, throughout the year.
Yes.
Well, they
Okay,
have that
just wanted to
plus
make sure I understood.
terminal rent too. I think that's an important aspect to note.
Say that again, Diane?
They're not only paying for that landing fee; they're also calculating in their charges the terminal rent that we just talked about too. So it's kind of a full
Which is
package
also
for the
which is
airline.
going up significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly has a question.
Yes, I thought I understood this, and then Francie's question confused me slightly. So, what in this situation is scenario number one the revenue neutral situation?
Two.
Two.
Scenario 2 is a revenue neutral.
Okay.
Or the rate
first one is
rate
a
neutral.
decrease.
Let's put
Right.
it that way. Rate neutral. Yes.
Okay.
Is that the question?
I have comments whenever we get to it, but
Okay.
that's my question.
Any more on this presentation, recommendations? You kind of left it wide open for us.
Yes. So we have to, next steps for us and Brian is to take this to the GA community and take it to the airlines. And we wanted to get some direction forward on which methodology you prefer or want us to move forward with before we go to that level to get concurrence and consultation with the airlines before we bring it back for second reading.
Got it. Kelly.
So I'll just launch into my comments, which aren't much different from the first discussion on this one, but mine, my position on this is a bit of a principled one in that, I regard the airport as an enterprise fund and as a service that not all of the community uses as a pay-as-you-go operation. And that's the lens that I look at this through, and that I think that we should not be putting a $10 million subsidy to these landing fees, and that it should pay as you go. So I continue to think that, I sort of think of this as like what if we were talking about the landfill and we were just going to give a $10 million reduction in tipping fees for no policy outcome? You know, it just doesn't align with kind of my philosophy on how we should approach these, you know, these projects, assets. So, you know, so I continue to think that we should charge the full landing fee. I'd be more willing to hold a revenue neutral on the commercial terminal side than charge them more for that, because I do think that that has more of a public serving benefit than subsidizing 83% of GA operations. So, you know, so that's where I'm at. I mean, I'm at the scenario 4 with a willingness to discuss, you know, a 0% increase on the terminal.
Patty.
Can we do that without being discriminatory?
As long as it's evenly, you know, a terminal's separate, so we can.
So we could charge whatever we wanted there and charge whatever we want over here without being looked at as discriminating.
You could do that because they're separate issues. Now, if you went back and charged a completely different landing fee, we're going to give, you know, some relief to the airlines, but not the GA, that would become a problem. One way, just to provide a little perspective in this, the way the operators are going to look at this a little bit, is they're going to claim, and again, I don't have a necessary preference on this. I'm just saying how they're going to look at it, is they're already paying taxes and fees into the AIP fund,
right?
Which are the grants, and if the grants are pulled, they're paying into those. But now they're being, in a sense, double charged because now they're asking to make up those charges.
So they're paying into one and now we're not getting benefit.
Exactly.
And now the other because we didn't get the benefit of the first.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the rationale of why we worked it out the way we did.
But they
originally.
will, and we know they will eventually.
Well, we do this every year, don't we?
Yes.
So we've got.
It's harder this year.
We raised it last
Francie.
year, as I recall.
Yes, we did.
So it looks to me, I'm just doing a little quick math here, like the landing fee for a commercial airline is going to cost them somewhere between $1,700,000 and $3,600,000, somewhere in that range per year. And then they also have the 12% increase on the other one, but we also have added costs. So I'm for a place of neutrality here because we're absorbing greater costs too, and we're not for profit. It's not like we have a bunch of people who are lining their pockets with all this money that we're charging. It's just to be reinvested at the airport. So that's a different scenario than if we were for profit and raising costs like this. So I would be for, I remain still for not raising the fees, but not reducing them because just trying to see the impact on the airlines and everything it seems like by not raising it, that's an average of about 7 something. So it'd be closer to 2 to 3 million, I think. But I just think that is the most credible approach in terms of keeping us where we need to be to do the improvements we need to do at the airport and not spreading the wealth among everybody who lands at the airport.
Sure.
Kelly.
I just want to point out that still is a $10 million subsidy from money that we had expected to save and reinvest in the projects that will alleviate this hole to begin with.
So Francie, you're looking at option 2, the neutral. I'm kind of a blend, 2 and 3. I think 4 will raise too many eyebrows and cause more problems than it gives us solutions. But I think we have a year to test some new waters and what's happening with our airport and progress and what's happening on things on a national level and funding opportunities. So we'll see where the rest of the board, but the 2 or 3 would kind of, I think.
Not going down.
Yeah.
Steve?
Well, I would agree the 2 or the 3. It would almost be like, flipping a coin to which one. Now, you're taking this to the airlines to get their take on it, is that right?
We are required to go back to them and have a comment period with them, basically. So we'll do that. We already presented to the GA industry group, but due to the shift or what direction we're given, we'll go back to them and update them on that as well.
Got it.
Greg, where are you?
I'm trying to figure out, and I'm still trying to understand it, but you know, somebody's going to bear the cost, and it seems to me that it's going to get passed off to flying public, and I don't want to make it so onerous that we're causing a great hardship. On the other hand, I do agree that we're trying to get something done here, and it'd be great to use the revenue toward those ends. Since this is going to go back to them and there may be pushback, we don't know. It sounds like it's somewhat of a negotiation in a way. I would say let's start with 3 and end up somewhere between 2 and 3, as the others are saying. And I'm not bold enough to go for 4 because I'm afraid it's going to cause too much grief elsewhere. But maybe we can do 2 or 3. And at that point, if we gave you direction to do that, we're going to hear back from you on how it's received, and
yes.
if there's a negotiating point, or if we're just laying down the law now. I don't quite understand. I'd love to hear Brian's and your perspectives on that.
Sure. Let Brian start out there if you like.
Okay, Brian, you first. What do you think?
Well, with the airlines, as Dan indicated, the meeting that is generally held about this time each year with the airlines is to present the package that you've seen and the proposed rates or the rates as adopted by the BoCC. And you know, the nature of the airline agreement is that it is a give and take, if you will, but there's not a negotiation. At the end of the day, the rate is set by the county, and it's compensatory in nature. I think, as we were indicating last time, this is a very unique situation. It is the first time that I'm recalling in the 6 years or so that these types of meetings have occurred where there has been a proposal for use of airport funds to tamper, if you will, or tamp down, not tamper, tamp the rate or keep it constant because of some unique situation that appears to be only a one-time situation. So I think that it viewed from that lens, keeping the rate constant or providing rate relief for 1 year, particularly on the landing fee, is what staff and everyone has been considering, and would probably be appreciated by at least the airlines, I know.
Got it. So if you had to take an argument to them, does this seem that it holds any water, what we're asking you to do? Like, is it defensible?
I think the one part about it that might be a little difficult is to not take them something definitive. As Brian mentioned, it's not true. It's not really a negotiation. It's here's what we're proposing. Give us your thoughts. But we can still do it anyway, regardless of what their thoughts. It's just more of a. I'd go a little further than a courtesy, but it really is to get their thoughts and their comments on it, and if they have any major concerns on it that we need to go back and think about a little bit and sharpen our pencils. But it really isn't a situation we do want to go into and say, well, let's start out with this and then negotiate it down, because it's not something we
doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, happy to take a hybrid and split the baby and go between 2 and 3 or something, and we can mathematically do that.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Yeah, so we have to have one or the other. We can't say, here, pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. We need to have, here, this is the one, not being one, but the.
It would be, as in the past, when we've taken these rates to the airlines, it is in those instances or those years when it's been preceded board action, it's always been stated to the airlines, these are the recommended rates. Ultimately, the board sets the rate by county code. This is the calculated rate, and has had no use of fund balance, and it is not a discretionary credit. But taking one proposal to the airlines is preferable, as Dan said.
Thank you. So we're going to come up with one for you by the end of this meeting. Francie.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on whether or not we were giving discretionary credits this year and last year. And
I don't believe we did. Because one thing, we were offsetting some other costs with using some of the ARPA money we had and things like that. That's no longer available. This was the last year we could use that. So no, we are not.
Well, why did that fund meet that figure meet the requirements last year, but we have to support it this next year? I don't get that.
It's that almost $10 million shortfall that we're going to have due to the runway maintenance, basically.
Because we have to do the runway repair.
The loss of revenue in May for us and them.
It's not the necessarily loss of revenue in May. It's the additional cost that gets applied to the airfield to maintain that runway.
But we also will have losses in May.
We do. We looked into that, and with the period of time, because of when we schedule the closure, it's not significantly impactful. However, in the future, it may, as we start to expand outward out of the shoulder season.
The issue. Oh, sorry.
Just
Francie.
one last thing.
Yeah.
How impactful will it be to the airlines to not be flying in May? I know it's not high season, but
There's a minimal number of flights for them during that period. Unfortunately, the weather doesn't necessarily cooperate with us, so we try to push it more into the summer. That doesn't work for them. So it is the least. I couldn't quantify exactly how impactful it is to them, but it's the least impactful period of time to do this.
right, I get that. I'm just trying to balance the numbers a little bit about the impact that our closure will have on their income and compared to how raising rates or not doing discretionary credit. I'm just trying to see where that, if part of the justification for reducing it is because of the inconvenience of the airfield being closed, I know part of it's because we have more money now, so we can afford to charge less, but I don't really buy that one. But the inconvenience for the airlines, I do understand. Well, I interrupted you, John. What were you going to say?
No, I think I was in the process of interrupting you, actually, so sorry about that. I think the issue that staff was trying to deal with is we're in this window of kind of a unique time where we've been unable and until today to assure that we would be able to have a process to rebuild the runway. Typically, the repairs that are being supported would be amortized out over
10 years.
10 years, thank you, 10 years. We're amortizing them out over 1 year, basically because of runway conditions. So we have that unique circumstance. On top of just being in this place of decision making, and so we also have the airlines that are contributing to AIP funds that we can no longer access because we don't have an approved ALP, something we hope to remedy here in a few minutes. But it was that combination of unique circumstances that we were taking clearly too much responsibility for as the board brought us back, but that we're trying to address with some compromise here.
Okay, I just have one last question then, if that's okay, Greg. So is this a recommendation, the reduction in charge, or is it just where you landed? Are you recommending that we reduce the charge?
I think we do recommend the reduction only because we're trying to offset the cost of the maintenance.
Okay.
To no fault of the users at this point.
Yeah, right.
But then also the fact that we're receiving additional revenue. A lot of times you try to spread that around a little bit.
Okay.
But we're not required to.
All right, I understand.
Yep.
I was just wondering, because if it was just a scenario that you were providing rather than a recommendation, so,
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to process-wise, I think we have 3 recommendations between 4 commissioners on the table right now. One, Kelly, I heard,
What are you
to
doing,
go all the way to 4.
Make a motion.
And I think I heard something maybe around 2, and then something between 2 and 3, and so
2 or 3 or 2 and 3.
or something between there, yeah. And so, if I think it might be good to see if there's some narrowing down that the board may be able
That's
to
where I'm
build a
going.
majority around.
That's where I'm going. Could we just get a
I could
a
go
show
with
of-
2, which is neutral, that doesn't decrease, which is where
I was
Francie
going to
was from.
propose 3 to start and see if there's any interest in 3 as a
You're not
compromise.
helping, but
Well, I wouldn't choose to go to 3 because I'd like to respect the recommendation of the people who've been working on this for a long time
Okay, so
and
you're
understand what
you're
they're talking
closer to
about.
2, 1 or 2.
I'm 2.
You're at 2, and you're at 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kelly's at 4. We averaged that out. We're at 3.
no, we're at
Um,
2
I just
points.
didn't know, I mean,
No, because you're not
you know,
gonna
I
get
think
3
that the
votes for 3.
recommendation is appropriate for staff to make because they are going, you know, the assumption I'm making is to be politically conservative about it. They are not in the position to weigh those, you know, the politics. We are in the position
Right.
to weigh the politics. You know, this is a situation which is highly unusual, which we don't have other test cases to look at. And, you know, I feel like the FAA, if they're going to be a partner, they need to be a partner in their decision making, you know, and it is their decision not to fund our runway repavement. And I don't think that we should have to take our savings, which frankly has taken years to build up, to subsidize the users of the airport because of their decision. And that's the political calculus that we are the ones that are to make.
Thank you for
That
that.
is-
So I'll
That's
shut
very
up
clear.
now. I've said
No,
my piece.
no,
Y'all know
no.
where I stand.
You don't have to shut up. I appreciate you saying that. Steve?
I think I would vote for having the revenue, number 2, the revenue neutral one. We know that the runway's going to be closed for a whole month in May. It is every year because the
28
runway
May.
is getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not the fault of the airlines or the GA pilots that this is happening. It's other factors come into play about it. So I would leave it the same as it is. We don't want to penalize, sort of penalizing them for something that's not their fault. And I don't think we should do that. Just keep it neutral. We spend our money to do the repairs. Now, maybe this coming May, maybe the FAA will help pay for it again. Perhaps, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because they're wanting to
So,
move the
are
runway.
you back to 1?
No, I would do 2.
it 2?
You're at 2, okay.
I would do 2.
Yeah,
We've got
One
3
more
2s
question,
on the
if that's
table.
okay. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
So GA doesn't have any say in this. You talk to the commercial airlines, but you don't talk to GA.
Oh, we
right?
do talk to GA
No,
as
we
well.
talk to
You do.
both.
Yep.
Who represents them? Is there an organization that represents them? Or?
Actually, a couple of organizations. So there's the MBAA, or the National Business Aircraft Association,
Okay.
and the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association.
Okay, so most of the pilots belong to one of those. Or,
Typically, but we also meet with we invite the local pilots to join as well,
Okay, thank you.
even though local pilots do not pay a landing fee if their aircraft weighs below 12,500.
Okay.
yeah,
Patty.
my comment was going to be, once we move forward with all the other issues we have before us today regarding the airport, I think we will get back into good graces with the FAA. I'm going to be very positive here, John, and optimistic, and that we will be seeing this situation of us having to pay for repairs or reconstruction. We're going to see that being resolved in a very timely manner.
Thank you. Was that a motion?
I will make a motion to approve, how do I do this? I'm usually pretty good at it. To approve the setting initial airport rates and charges for 2025 at the recommended option number 2 rate schedule.
Set for public hearing on November 20th.
Set for public hearing on November 20th. Does that work, Rye?
Sounds like it
Yeah, I
worked
think
for
that
me.
makes sense. That's
That was
the
clear.
option 2 that was presented today during the meeting in the Recondo slides.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We've got 2 seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've got 4-1, and thank you for your principled stance, Kelly. I appreciate it.
You could put in a lot of electric vehicle installers with $9 million.
We're gonna put it in.
I know I'm going to grow to regret this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that conversation. We're going to probably get better at this as we go.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Brian.
Brian. Good
Thanks,
to see
Brian.
you.
Hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, looking forward to it. Okay, we're going to item number 8. This is an ordinance approving and authorizing the chair to sign an extension of an agreement with All Star Media Services at the airport. Dan and Diane, and is Dave in the house?
He's
No?
in the Dominican Republic.
He is. So
Well, then you guys can do this.
they will. Oh, thank you, Rosa.
Maybe he's going to call in.
He's on the beach
Yeah,
today.
he probably isn't going to call in. Okay.
Bear with me 1 second. We'll pull the presentation out for you.
Can I ask a question while she's doing that? Are there any changes from when we discussed this at our work session?
So actually, thank you, Patty. I'm so glad that you said that. And to respect everyone's time this afternoon and understanding we have several items on your agenda today. The only change we made with RISE recommendation was from a 5-year extension or the terminal commencement in the new terminal was to do an original 3-year extension with a possibility of another extension for 2 years, which will kind of let us reevaluate at the 3-year mark where we are with the new terminal.
Given the
was-
future of there.
Yeah, and the applicant we had discussed with that, it's not gonna blindside him?
No, no.
Great. Okay, that's it, and that's the only.
And that's actually for both. Both are very
was
similar.
my
We
question
broke
I
them
was
up
going
because
to.
of the ordinances. However, the only terms that changed from our work session were just changing that, breaking that 5
We don't know where
years
we'll
out.
be in 3 years, and we don't know where we'll be in 5.
Correct.
Any other presentation items on this? Or are we, that's
It's
it?
still-
That's
the computer's
plain and simple.
Technical issues, but yes, thank you,
Questions?
Patty, for asking.
No, that's the only question I had, unless the board.
I'm all good with it.
Okay, I'd look for a motion on it then.
I
We've
will
seen
make
this
a
couple
motion to
times.
approve an ordinance approving an extension to an agreement with All Star Media for advertising services at the Aspen-Pitkin County Airport. This is first reading, and second reading will be on public hearing be on November the 20th. And this is for a 3-year with an option for the board to extend and two additional, two,
And we have a second
an
from
additional
Francie.
2 years.
Further discussion? None? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0. Kelly's not present for this one, but we're passed. We're going to keep moving. Next, we have an ordinance approving a 5th amendment to the lease agreement between Jedediah Aspen LLC and the Board of County Commissioners to extend the lease agreement for food and beverage concession at the Aspen-Pitkin County Airport.
And I think Rhea and Mike might be
And maybe
online.
they're online?
However, as you said, with the glitches here in technology, the only change from
Yeah,
our
so
work
we may or
session
may not
is
see them,
the
right.
extension, the change in
There's Rhea,
the
right?
Same thing,
extension.
the 3 with 1 2-year
Correct.
extension. Is the only
Mike,
change.
there's Mike. All right, they're here.
I don't have any other questions.
Neither do I.
We've been through this, yeah.
And I do have a comment though, Greg, if that's okay?
Yeah, please,
I
go
think
ahead.
this just makes sense for both of these leaseholders because of, the time it's gonna take us to redo or make decisions on a new terminal. And that if for them to be able to, oh, look at the fancy head, he's got his Senate chambers behind him, trying to make us feel, we need to put something up here behind us. And give them time to, give them some benefit of doing improvements that need to be made now, rather than keep things together in the interim as best they can. So that's why I'm supportive of moving this on for the 3 + 1 2.
Thank
A
you.
total of 5 years.
Great, thank you, Patty. Any other comments, questions on Jedediah's? If not, I don't think we need a presentation. We've talked to you about this. But if you wanted to say something, Senator, I'd like to give you an opportunity.
Senator.
You're muted still, but there you go.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just thank you very much for considering this. I'll be in person at your next reading to answer any further questions, but for today, just say congratulations on your ballot victory. and those, and your also victories last night. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Okay, I'm bringing this back to the board.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve the ordinance, which approves the Fifth Amendment to a lease agreement from Jedediah Aspen LLC and the Board of County Commissioners to extend the lease agreement for the food and beverage concession at the Aspen-Pitkin County Airport.
I'll second.
Okay, Francie and Patty. Further discussion? Any particular food you'd like to see out there? Drinks?
It's pretty good right now.
Espresso machine? You got a good espresso machine?
Just a comment, I've been, when I have had meals, I don't go through the airport that often, but I always try to patronize Jedediah's when I go through, and I've never had a bad experience. I like the food, it's good. I
There
think
you
you're
go.
doing a good job there.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Especially
for being
with
so
the limited
responsive, because
space.
I know you've had, been responsive to the community over the years, and I think that it shows. So I'm going to call, was there a motion? There was a motion.
A motion
Yes,
and
and
a
a
Calling the
second.
question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Nice to see you. See you in November.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, up next, I think we're getting closer to the main attraction here. First of all, I was going to say we've got
This is the main
the
attraction.
approval of the
one of the
airport layout plan is up next, and after that, we have the fixed base operator lease, of which I am going to recuse myself, as I have been since the beginning of that conversation, and I'll hand it over to Steve at item number 11. But at 10 is the ALP discussion. So tell us about this ALP.
Tell us what we
There it
don't
is.
know.
Welcome, Brad.
Nice to see you again.
It's always nice to have you here.
Thanks for waiting in the lobby all morning.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's been a minute. We don't have a formal presentation, and I really don't have any opening comments other than the summary that was provided in the agenda item summary. I thought was thorough and complete and accurate. But I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about whatever happens to be on your mind this morning.
Under the circumstances, especially.
Okay,
under the
any
circumstances.
other changes? Like, we can say that there was an election and the county prevailed with its position that we'll be making a decision on the ALP, and here we are today. Has anything changed since the last time we discussed this? Nothing that needs to be talked about before we make a call, or
Yeah, nothing substantial changed. I mean, we had some minor comments, and Brad can probably talk about those from the FAA, which you typically do on an ALP project, but there's nothing significant at all.
No, we went through, as you recall, we last time we talked in May, there was a vote, and we were to proceed and submit to the FAA with the document. We did that. The FAA took it under consideration, returned some what I consider to be fairly minor editorial comments, nothing substantial technically. We corrected those, resubmitted, and they approved the ALP, a few weeks ago. So now we're at a position where it's time for the BoCC to sign the ALP document, submit it to the FAA. They will sign it. They've approved it. And then we can proceed on to the next step in the implementation process as you all see fit.
got it. And this is just the beginning, or maybe we're just in the middle of the beginning.
We got all the way to the 2-yard line. Now all we got to do is punch it the other 98 yards and we'll be in.
I was gonna say,
Question,
William.
well,
Yeah.
thanks for your optimism. And,
Yeah.
Patty.
Is it appropriate, I'm going to be looking at council and John Peacock, to just give a brief, what next steps will be if and when we pass this on second reading, when we have public comment?
Sure. So from an implementation standpoint, the way this typically works is you do all your planning up front. For you guys, that's been going on for about 12 or 13 years now, including the visioning process and everything up to that point. That leads into the ALP process, which we've now completed. We have a signed, approved ALP. That gives you conditional approval to implement the future development of the airport as it's identified on the ALP. The next step in that process is to complete the environmental review, which follows the NEPA process, the National Environmental Policy Act. and that's prescribed in the FAA documents. The good news is that you all completed an environmental assessment and received a finding of no significant impact back in 2018. The FAA has indicated that while that very detailed environmental analysis was done and accepted by the FAA, that was in 2018. Now we're 6 years later, and they have some questions that they want to get validated through this, what I'll call a supplemental NEPA process. So it will not be a full environmental assessment, but it will be looking at a number of items that were already considered and validating that they are still, there's no significant impact with those. We've begun discussions with them while they were reviewing the ALP to understand what that timeline would look like, and they've indicated to us that there's 16 or 24 different categories that they want to look at. They're really focused on 4: air quality, noise, climate, and traffic. We'll look at all 16 or 24 categories, of course, through the NEPA process. But again, the very detailed analysis that's already been done will be leaned on very heavily through that. And I think it's important to note that this is the FAA's process, so they're going to be leading the process. We'll be doing the technical analysis and feeding that information to them, and then they'll be, coordinating it to their satisfaction.
Well, what do you mean coordinating it? What does that mean, coordinating what?
They will be driving the level of specificity to that analysis. So, for example, they could say, we want to evaluate the noise contours based on the changes in the activity, the projected activity that is now slid 6 years, right? So our forecast was not dramatically different. The AOP forecast was not dramatically different than the forecast that was done for the environmental assessment. However, because of the 6-year time lag, we are now projecting 6 years into the future for that horizon year. So they're going to look at that and decide what level of analysis that requires. Does it require new modeling, new contours, or does it require some other type of analysis?
Okay.
Got it.
Can I add on?
Sure.
It's my understanding that, 2 things real quick. I'm going to do the easiest one first. The ALP is currently available for the public to review on the 3rd floor of the Pickens County, this building. It's in the administrative offices. It's right when you walk in the door on your left-hand side. And that office is open from 8 to 5, correct? 5 days a week, Monday's a holiday, so people can come in and actually review the documents that you have here. So that's open for the public, part of public comment on the 20th, people wanted to look at the document. The other thing is, once we get into the next phases, the addressing NEPA process, the EIS, however, which directions we end up going, and it's the FAA's process, and they'll be handling certain aspects, such as community involvement, discussion, that kind of issue, correct? So it's part of the process as we move forward.
Correct.
Okay.
And concurrently, once we've approved this, we have other work to do to begin getting ready. And I assume what I think I understand is we're drawing upon the visioning committee's discussions about things like terminal design, services offered, parking, all this stuff we start trying to put something on paper with some certainty so we can say that we're shovel ready when the time comes. Is that the right way to say that?
Greg, I think it's a good reminder for the community and for us, especially as we come out of what was a contentious election season, that as we've gotten direction to move forward with this project, we also remain committed. Staff is still working under direction from this board to honor the Vision Committee recommendations, including the environmental goals, the noise goals, the you know, the impacts on community character goals, and that it becomes incumbent on us now to really look at our processes going forward, because we are going to have to design facilities to bring forward into this process, and that we completely, you know, unless the board changes direction to staff, and you have not, you have been consistent in honoring these community goals and these community priorities, and that will continue to be a focus for us going forward. And the next step in that process, of course, the ALP is in front of you today. Once we get into designing that terminal area and the mass transit area, it gives us an opportunity to both continue our conversations with the community and to demonstrate how we're honoring those goals.
Great, thank you. And just as a reminder, the second reading on this is on November 20th, and that is the opportunity for public comment at that time. So the conversation continues as we move forward, and I'm comfortable with this. I'm looking for either a comment or a question or a motion.
I do have
Steve,
a question.
Go ahead.
The FAA approved our modified ALP with minor changes. And we don't know exactly what those changes are. I've heard it was, you know, adjusting some taxiways, but are the changes that they brought back to us, are those ones that we can live with? Are they ones that we should take a closer look at and, you know, maybe protest to the FAA or what?
Yeah, thank you. Let me clarify my statement. The comments that they provided to us were editorial in nature as far as the presentation, how the tables were prepared in the data sheet. It had nothing to do with the technical data or the physical layout of the facilities. Nothing has changed from what you approved
So
back
the
in
map's still
May.
exactly the same?
The map is exactly the same.
Okay.
Good question.
Now, let me make a correction here just so I don't misspeak. There is a high-speed exit, Alpha 6, 5, 6, that does not meet their design standards for a high-speed runway exit.
Is that the one that's at an angle?
That's the one that's at an angle, right? They use a new design template. So the fillets were not the right radius.
Okay.
And so we made that correction, and with apologies, we didn't determine that to be a material change. We made it was more of a technical change, so we made that to conform with FAA's design standards. I could not tell the difference. I don't believe anybody else would be able to tell the difference in changing a radius on a drawing of that scale, but that was actually done at the FAA's request.
And that was the radius on the diagonal exit from the runway in the direction of the terminal pad, and it's just the radius on the corners.
The
Right.
connection between taxiway alpha and that exit taxiway, those fillet radiuses were, I mean, literally it was a matter of a few feet off. They had to go from 190-foot radius to 180-foot radius or something of that nature. So again, you wouldn't be able to see it on the drawing. I could show you where it's at, but you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
And it's not something anybody sitting on an airplane would ever notice either. Right. Okay, thank you.
So
Go
when
ahead.
you say high speed,
Higher
the first
speed.
thing that popped into my mind was a runaway truck ramp on I-70 where the truck is out of control and you need to bring its speed down. Well, if that's happening to a plane, I want them to keep going down the runway. But I know that sometimes a plane will land and they'll go off on a taxiway while they're still going at a, pretty fair clip. Is that what this actually is?
Yeah, and the intent.
They're not out of control whatsoever. Their speed is under control, but they're still moving at a fairly high rate of speed where they can't do a right angle turn, but they can go off at an angle.
Yeah, it's actually intended to signify higher speed exit than a 90-degree exit, which the aircraft has to come to a nearly complete stop before they make that 90-degree turn. So the designation high-speed exit is intended to infer that the aircraft can exit the runway at a higher speed than a traditional 90-degree exit.
With the focus to reduce runway occupancy time.
And therefore increase capacity and efficiency.
Speeds up their time getting off the runway.
So that the next aircraft can utilize the runway, right?
Got it. Any other comments or questions or motions?
I'll make a motion.
She didn't hesitate
Are we
on
ready?
that one.
Motion go. Yeah, please.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the resolution approving an airport layout plan. That's all the words in it.
Set for second reading on November 20th.
I'll second the
Got a
motion.
second from Steve,
And public hearing on the 20th.
and there'll be public hearing on the 20th. And further comment, Kelly and then Steve.
Thank you. As you all may recall, I voted no on this when it last came to us as representation of the voice of dissent in our community. Given the very decisive direction we heard on 1C and on 200 yesterday, which I assume will hold between now and second reading when all of the ballots have been processed, I am prepared to support this. And, that does not mean that this is license for the BoCC to bow and cower to whatever the FAA wants. What I do think it is license for us to continue advocating the community vision as reflected in the ALP and articulated through the Vision Committee Common Ground recommendations. And I look forward to doing that.
Thank you, Kelly.
Well said. Steve?
So looking at this, the map of this ALP, I think this is something, I said this earlier in our commissioner comments, this is something we can be proud of. When you compare this to what our airport layout plan was 12 years ago that we were looking at, this is such a vast improvement, and it has so many different elements in it that came out of the Common Ground recommendation, with all the more than 100 citizens working on this proposal to help us. So I want to get a picture of this and frame it and put it on my wall, because this is really a good piece of work that we have done. And I might point out too that, it wasn't just us, but our staff were continually communicating with the FAA and kind of running ideas by them, and it was a give and take. So this is the work of the FAA also. It's not just our thing, but I think that should be pointed out that the FAA is our partner in this. And I think this totally meets our goals of having a much safer airport. There are those who disagree with that, but so be it. And pave the way for lowering our carbon footprint of our airport and having it quieter and less polluting, and also having a much more modern, state-of-the-art kind of a terminal that we can be proud of. In my op-ed, I compared our existing terminal to, it's more like a third world country airport.
We are
In
a
fact,
third world
that's
country.
really, it's not something I think we could really be proud of in this day and age, but what this is here was something we can be proud of, and I wish I could be here and pass all the motions to move this forward, but I'll be following along with interest.
I think that we can make Steve a poster as a,
That's
put
a
as
going
well.
away
But
present.
I'm thinking this is tattoo worthy, Steve.
I was actually thinking about using it to wrap Christmas presents.
They change those every 5 years. I'm not sure
You show us when you get it done.
It wouldn't fit on here
You can
very
just
well.
amend
I'd have
it.
to put it on my back, but I couldn't see it back there.
Give you a mirror.
I have to share that. I think a developing country airport is kind of what it is, because the terminal is so old. My house is a fairly old house, and the terminal was designed by the same architect, and it was same vintage as well. And we know it's aging. It does have a certain charming scale to it. So I'm hoping that we all have plenty of public input on the ongoing development design of how this thing's going to work. And I don't think we're trying to do anything grandiose, but I think we want to do something that really works well for us and represents our values. And I just want to be certain that the community understands that the commissioners share the values that have been expressed by this community, especially the people who've been so concerned about rampant growth and growing too big and creating more. I don't think any of us have that as an ambition. And I just think it's important to state that at the end of this contentious election.
So-
Steve, go ahead.
One more thing. My father was involved in developing the terminal. It's actually our existing terminal, but it was an earlier version of it that has since been remodeled. And the community was really proud of that product they had.
Yeah.
They had the windows that the beads would blow into at night or when it was cold to make the building more energy efficient was one of the things that they had.
My house had the same technology.
And it actually, that terminal really worked well. We didn't have TSA to deal with. When we had TSA plop down on the middle of what we had, that immediately made our terminal dysfunctional. And it, with no way to really get out of it besides building a new terminal. So that's really why, one of the large things that drove what the actions we've been taking.
Don't forget the garage door you lifted up to get your luggage come in too.
All of that, yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing what comes next from that. I'm going to call the question.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Enough of that. All right, this is
Thanks for hanging in there with us, Brad.
John, you're about to say something.
You wanted to take a little break before this?
We could take a 5-minute break. I'm going to be
Are you gonna
recused
take
from
us
this
away?
conversation, and I'll come back later if you need me.
I know.
simple, right? I've flown out of here. You sit there, they
You
totally.
can take it, you know. So you can just
Okay, welcome back to our BoCC regular meeting on Wednesday, November 6th, 2024, the day after the election. So our chairman, Greg Postman, is recused on this matter, and he has left for the day. I'm going to chair the whole rest of the meeting because the parts after this are fairly short. So we're talking about the proposed lease with Atlantic Aviation, who is the fixed space operator at our airport. And we have a whole crew of, I would say, all-stars who have worked on this lease agreement for a long time, and there was a whole lot of work to do on it, and I thank you in advance to all of you for the work you put into it. And I think we came up with a lease that works for Pitkin County and it works for Atlantic Aviation, and I think it will work for the general public who uses Atlantic Aviation services at our airport. So John, I will hand it off to you to do the whatever introductions or
Thank you, Steve, and I'm really happy to be here at this point today. As you said, we've had a long negotiation. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. What's, I think, really important is this was first and foremost a values-based discussion. It was a conversation about what our community's vision is for the airport, what our values are that we're trying to achieve for our community, and how those could be expressed and supported through this lease agreement with Atlantic Aviation. And I want to introduce at least some of the folks. There are more that were involved in this process and in these important discussions. And I'll have a few more comments to make from there. But from Atlantic Aviation, just to my right, we have Clive Lowe, who is the Executive Vice President for Atlantic Aviation. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, you didn't get a promotion between now and then? Okay. Jonathan Jones, who you know, he's our General Manager for our FBO through Atlantic Aviation. Online, we have Dawood Crooms, who's the General Counsel for Atlantic Aviation. We have Mark Hamilton floating around here somewhere. And then Maureen Postman snuck in here. She's also with Atlantic Aviation. Sorry I didn't get your name on there.
John, can I just
Maureen.
correct? It's Holland, and isn't it H-A-R-T?
It is, thank you.
But you know what? They do have a lot of heart.
They're dedicated
That's
to
like
this.
not having a heart, Mark. I know. I apologize. Thank you for correcting that and pointing it out publicly.
I just wanted to
From-
let them know we do believe Holland has
Yeah.
a lot of heart.
And this is the only spelling mishap we'll see today.
I hope
right?
so.
In the least. Given
Yeah,
how
not in the
we
least.
looked at it.
Pitkin County Online, we have Herb Klein, who is an attorney that supported us. Anne Marie McPhee's in the room, also supported us throughout these negotiations. Right, I can't call you Richard. I need to do that. Okay, Richard Neely, our interim county attorney, of course, Rich Engelhart, our deputy county manager, Dan Bartholomew, our airport director, Diane Jackson, who I think snuck out
I'm right here,
online.
down there.
To your
To your right.
Oh, there she is. Good Lord, there's a lot of us up here.
Jonathan stole my spot. It's
And then, of course, we have Ann Driggers, our Chief Financial and Administrative Officer and Treasurer. We've worked together for a long time to put this together, and before we go into the details of the lease, I do want to thank this team from Atlantic. This was a robust conversation that we had, and I really have appreciated Atlantic's commitment to getting to yes and being consistent and honoring our community's values. And that really started with the gentleman to my right, Clive. And Clive, before I go into details of the lease, I just want to give you an opportunity to.
No, thank you for that, John. And as John said, I'm Clive Lowe, Executive Vice President with Atlantic Aviation. It's great to be here. Good to be with you again. we're delighted to have got to this milestone. We've been a long-standing citizen, corporate citizen at the airport, and aspired to be here for the long term. This airport is very important to our portfolio. It's very important to our network. It's very important to our culture. We believe we understand the culture, the community, and values, and believe that we're aligned to meet and exceed them. And I think the agreement that we have in front of us enshrines all of that and strives to achieve everything. I have tremendous respect, and this is not a sort of mutual sycophancy, because we've been through a lot together as a team, but it would be remiss of me if I didn't say this. I have tremendous respect for the county team, for John Rye, the late John Ely, for Dan, for Rich, for Diane, and the external advisors. If I was going into any negotiation anywhere, I would take that team with me and your external advisors. They are meticulous in detail, but they understand at the end of the day, like anything in airports, we're dealing with an uncertain future, and we're working towards a degree of flexibility. And flexibility means you have to have trust. So I think we've got a very tightly worded agreement, and I've seen many and been involved in many negotiations across the US. I think this is an exceptional agreement. I think it gets you everything that you set out in the RFP process, which, by the way, I have to say, in recognizing the value of the asset and recognizing the involvement of the community, you laid out a superb RFP. You really tested the market. I think you got a very good response in that. And we're humbled that we were selected and we've been able to negotiate this lease. So we're very excited to reach this stage, and I'll pass it back to John. Before I do that, I might just mention there are two other people on Zoom that joined late. Tim Johnson, VP of Business Development, and Eric Newman, who's actually based here or is based in Denver. He's our VP of Sustainability. He was intimately involved and as involved in a lot of our sustainability initiatives and future flight initiatives. With that, I'll hand it back to you. Thanks.
Steve, could I just say one thing here?
Yeah,
while you're saying wonderful things about our team, I wanted to add that the packet that was presented to us was exceptionally well written. I think the contract itself is incredibly well written. It was super easy to understand. It had specificity and clarity that just was really illuminating. So it made it really easy for us to assess it. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, the good news, I only have one slide. Oh, go ahead.
I just thank you. I just also would like to point out to the public that this is not the first time the board is seeing this, that we have the benefit of negotiating these things in executive session. And so, what we're looking at publicly today reflects those discussions and the direction that we've been giving over the last 2 years on this lease. So that's how these things get handled, and that's we've had many touch points on it. Thank you.
So I was tempted to go through each page of the lease individually with you. Instead, we've
and you like your job?
Yeah. We've summarized the agreement in some slides here. So we're going to go over the process to date, the basic financial terms of the lease, the capital investment and environmental initiatives, the commitments there that were made in the lease, a quick review of our financial advisory board recommendations, and then get in to any questions and board action from there. We did start this a while ago now. The RFP went out in August of 2022. In February of 23, we had proposals that were reviewed. In February of 23, we had a selection committee review, and in April of 23, the three top responders were shortlisted. And later in April, the selection committee made a recommendation to begin negotiations with Atlantic Aviation. We were thorough in those discussions, partly as a county team, we wanted to be sure we understood, and we're taking the time to learn what we needed to learn to represent the community well. And Atlantic was thankfully patient with us through those negotiations. And so we have been working through really until just recently, going through 2 lease extensions in order to accommodate our timeline. And as Kelly noted, we did have numerous executive sessions and touch points with the BoCC through the process. And today, we are here to talk to you about the lease that is presented for your consideration. I'm going to invite any of you to interrupt me at any time to add color or content to this. First, I want to go over the basic financial terms of the lease. The lease has a 30-year term, and within those 30 years, there are 4 basic ongoing revenue sources in the lease. The first is a ground rent that starts off at an initial amount of $3 million, and it is adjusted annually by 4% or CPI, whichever is greater. There is also a supplemental operating fee that is $2 million, and it's adjusted under the same terms as the ground rent. At year 10 of the lease, we have the option of going through an appraisal or resetting the lease really at a market value. That would first be a conversation with Atlantic Aviation if we could not settle on what that market value would be. We both have the option of bringing on an appraiser on an income basis to look at any adjustments to the lease amounts that would keep it relevant to the market. In no case does the rent go down, but it does have opportunities really to stay current, which is something we did not have really with our last lease agreement. And then there's a gross receipts fee, and the gross receipts fee requires that the tenant pay 26% of gross receipts on all charges. That's with exception of the patio shelters, which are set at 85% because, as you'll see later on, those are facilities that the county will be managing after Atlantic builds them for us. So, in addition to those financial terms, there is a minimum annual guarantee. And the purpose of a minimum annual guarantee is to ensure a minimum amount of revenue that is coming into the county. The base MAG, we call it MAG, and I'll try and not use the acronym that much, but the base minimum annual guarantee starts off at $14 million. That amount is adjusted following either the 4th year going into the 5th year, or after substantial completion of all the required improvements in the lease are completed, it will go to $16 million. In addition to that step up, there is a 1.5% escalator for the MAG every year, and that's the MAG adjustment. In addition, we negotiated an annual minimum annual guarantee adjustment so that if there is a situation where there's an exceptional revenue year, we get a little bit of the tail on that in terms of a minimum annual guarantee the following year. And the MAG for that following year would be set at either 85% of what those increased revenues would be, or the 1.5%, whichever is greater. There are, and this has been, I think, a little bit misunderstood in some of the dialogue that was happening in the community around the proposed lease. There are certain circumstances under which the minimum annual guarantee could either be suspended or adjusted. Examples of that include a runway closure that goes for 30 or more consecutive days. Other factors that may materially restrict the capacity or availability of the airport for 30 days or more. And we had some examples that we were concerned about around compliance with our FAA grant assurances. A second FBO operating, which we think is a very low likelihood event, but one over a 30-year term we had to consider as a possibility, even remote. Or what's called a force majeure event, which would be along the lines of war or strike or natural disaster, act of God. In these cases, the MAG would be proportionally adjusted as the event impacts the gross receipts of Atlantic Aviation. There's some examples of how we would calculate or consider that. Depending on the nature of the event, we also may have a suspension of the MAG, and those terms are defined within the lease. But it is very important to understand that in those events there is a proportional adjustment, and that would also show up likely in the gross receipts fee. It does not affect the lease revenues. In addition to those ongoing revenues, there are capital and community investment commitments that are included in the lease. These include $105 million minimum investment for East Side FBO redevelopment and West Side development. I'm going to have a few more examples of what's included in that. Atlantic is also committed to provide $10 million to the airport for airfield redevelopment. With an approved ALP, that would be match for FAA grants, for example, the portion that is not covered. Additionally, the lease includes up to $1.5 million to be used for uncovered costs for Taxiway B. Again, that could be grant match or such on the west side. And what I think is a really exciting addition to this lease from what we have previously had. And Clive, I may ask you to talk about this after I give an overview. Is there is $20 million in donor funds from Atlantic Aviation's nonprofit that's funded through corporate profits at Atlantic Aviation. Really to fund more community initiatives that impact decarbonization, aviation and airport support, including the Flight Academy, water conservation, affordable housing, and other community priorities. And there's a commitment to work with the community, really, to try and leverage those dollars into additional investments, whether it be grant matches or other philanthropic giving that would have a collective impact of over $100 million on the term of the lease. And I know this is an innovative program. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all.
Yeah, no, it is innovative, and it is really entirely separate from what we're doing at Aspen. This is Atlantic. We have the scale and the platform and the support to do this. I think we're engaged with the aviation industry, which is moving ahead to the future in terms of a more decarbonized, more sustainable environment, but has a long way to go. And the technology is coming and the certification is coming, and that does take time. And I think we've cultivated a philosophy that says there are ways that we can divert resources at a small and a larger scale in the communities in which we operate on issues that are important to the destination, because ultimately people are traveling to that destination for a reason. And what are those items that are tied to the airport? There is an area here where obviously it's vitally important that we do something that's consistent with FAA rules and regulations, and we fully adhere to that as you would expect. But there are a number of areas. Decarbonisation is obviously one of them. Water conservation. Airports use a lot of water. People who live near the airport are impacted by the airport, working at the airport, and their ability to live near an airport. So these are issues that are faced across the country, and obviously writ large, very familiar to you, especially in an environment like Aspen. So we're committed to use our own resources from this separate affiliated entity that we use for this purpose to support this. We have an excellent local team and a national team sort of guiding us. We know the resources exist here and in the wider national community to leverage additional dollars to do that. I think it needs leadership. I think it needs organization, and obviously we're prepared to put up a substantial amount to do that. But over the 30-year term, we're very confident. Eric Newman, my colleague, is engaged with this as part of his broader sustainability remit, but we're confident that we can make a significant impact and do something over and above what we're committed to do at the airport that will be aligned with the needs of this community.
Thank you. Well, now there we go. So wanted to talk a little bit about how the capital funds will be spent and the process there. As part of the lease, Atlantic Aviation is required to develop a FBO capital improvement plan that is consistent with the RFP response. But I think more importantly, the vision, the plan that came out of our our community visioning process, and the subsequent county resolutions that were adopted, 105-2020 and 25-2024, as well as Title 10 of the county code. That capital improvements plan will be reviewed by the airport director for comment. It will be reviewed by the airport advisory board for comment and recommendation, but ultimately will come back to this board for approval, so that you have an opportunity to see how the airport improvements both align with those commitments we've made to the community and fit with the future vision for the airport. And there are a lot of requirements, and these are just some highlights. The lease document is obviously very long, but the new lease will require new or renovated net zero buildings, reconstruction and reconfiguration of the airport or the aircraft apron and ramp, including installation of geothermal snow melt systems under a portion of the FBO apron that really limits some of the operational impacts of plowing and such. It establishes minimum conditions and standards for, minimum standards for pavement and building conditions throughout the end of the lease term, so that if we reach the 30 years and we haven't extended the lease or what have you, that we ensure we're getting assets that are of a specific condition, that they're maintained that way throughout the term of the lease. The agreement preserves patio shelters and other based aircraft parking positions on the east side until the west side is completed, and the west side, as we'll talk about, has some additional tie-down and patio shelter spaces to accommodate our based aircraft. Really excited about new fuel farm and really incorporating more sustainable aviation fuel as that becomes available. On the west side, we'll also have a 1,500 square foot local pilot planning and support building, patio shelter and tie-down infrastructure for based aircraft. There will be future coordination for new technologies that are emerging, solar investments, and then self-service and advanced request full-service fuel on the west side. And then 4 aircraft that are on we will maintain a list of based aircraft and aircraft on a wait list up to 110 aircraft that will qualify for a 25% discount off of the advertised retail price. It's a lot in here, really, for our base pilots also.
Can I just point out that that was a really key point for the Board of Commissioners, was maintaining the benefits to our locally serving our lessees with the tie-downs and our local pilots of sorts. But that was really important. So I think that we really appreciate that being so clearly incorporated into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Patty. Facilities will be designed and operated, as I already said, net zero, but we'll be using LEED Zero and Waste Platinum for new construction, alignment with Aspen's Water Integrated Resource Plan with a goal of achieving net positive water objectives. In addition to geothermal on the ramps, we'll also be looking at incorporating geothermal into the facilities for those net zero. That study, I believe, is underway. And then an assurance that we will be supplying no-lead aviation fuel once it is commercially available. We also have requirements around sustainable aviation fuel and efforts to source that locally once that is available. We are in the process of doing a feasibility study and hopefully developing some resources on the western slope of Colorado that Atlantic will be able to take advantage of, and who knows what other commercial opportunities may present themselves over the term of this lease. Also includes commitments around electrifying ground service equipment and to provide electric auxiliary power units, APUs, for aircraft, which, as the board is aware, is important to our neighbors. And the environmental commitments just keep going in the lease. Commitments to install electric vehicle charging for both customers and rental car staging, infrastructure for electric and hydrogen, coordinating on infrastructure for electric and hydrogen aircraft, if and when those technologies are available. And then commitments around working with us to reduce off-site noise and emissions impacts. Again, something that has been a regular feature of our discussions over the past dozen years or longer with our neighboring communities. Other financial terms of the lease, beyond the operating fees and capital investments that we've talked about, there is a security deposit equal to 3 months of the minimum annual guarantee, which would be $3.5 million in the first year. Construction bonding requirements, those would be in form acceptable to the county attorney for projects estimated to be over $500,000. And there's an assignment fee if the lease were to be assigned to or transferred to another operator. If there's any consideration received by Atlantic for that assignment, that we would have a 2.5% fee really to cover our due diligence and efforts and ongoing probably inconveniences of working with a new vendor. All told, that is an eye test from here. I'm sorry.
Sure is.
Yeah. I'll just summarize real quick. The minimum annual guarantee really is estimated to escalate from between 14 million to just over 23 million over the course of the lease with the pro forma that we're using. The ground rent and supplemental operating fee are estimated to escalate from 5 million to just over 15 million over the course of the lease, which puts the revenues between the minimum annual guarantee and the ground lease and operating fee between 19 and 38 million, just under 39 million over the term of the lease. And why that's important is those are relatively secure revenue sources within the lease. We've expressed some of the exceptions to that. We've talked about the share of gross revenues. The total estimated payments to Pickens County off of the fees and ground leases we're estimating to be just over $879 million. Then you have the minimum investment for required improvements at just over at 105 million, sorry, at a minimum of 105 million. Airfield contribution at 10 million, taxiway B grant match up to 1.5 million, and then 20 million in the community investment funds puts the total commitments within this lease agreement that's in front of you today at just over $1.015 billion over the 30 years of the lease. Most importantly, the percent of total revenues that are in ground lease, use fee, and minimum annual guarantee make up just under 96% of those ongoing revenues, which makes this a fairly secure. Our interests are well protected, and I think Atlantic has good exceptions built in, or reasonable exceptions built into the lease to those revenues. With that, the board did ask the Financial Advisory Board to make recommendations. And spend a lot of time, but they did advise that it's imperative to both accept FAA grants, and relevant to this conversation, it is in the county's best interest to conclude the proposed FBO lease. Staff is here to recommend to you today that you approve this lease on first reading as presented and set for second reading and public hearing on November 20th.
That was a good job.
That
was a great job.
Those y'all are sitting there quietly.
No, he stood up.
Couple years to get there.
Yeah. I know, it's so easy, right?
It was well done. Thank you.
Kelly.
Thank you. I really appreciate. I think this was super clear, and I would maybe suggest attaching this to the next packet for the benefit of the public who doesn't want to read the 85-page lease.
Sure.
Because I thought it was very clearly explains the benefits. I will say I think one of the best benefits of the lease that has come out of lessons learned in our former lease is to build in the escalators over time and a recognition of the potential changes in value for the community over time. And so I'm grateful to see that articulated in a number of ways in this. So thank you. Thank you for agreeing to it.
And while the whole board gave that direction, I'll give you particular credit for emphasizing that in our conversations.
No questions?
Any other questions?
Really?
Really?
I mean, we've seen it a lot.
We've been going over this, various parts of it, for at least a year and a half ourselves. So we're all, I think, very familiar with different specifics of various parts of the lease. To me, it's a win-win-win kind of a lease that everybody benefits from it. At one point, we were considering taking over the FBO operation ourselves, thinking, wow, Atlantic makes so much money on this, surely we could make so much money on this too. Then as we dug into it more deeply, we realized the business that Atlantic has is not just the Aspen Airport. You have a very broad network of operations at various airports, and you have clientele from all over, I'd say all over the country. It's probably, maybe from all over the world. I don't really know. And there would be no way that Picken County could hire employees to replace the job that you are doing there, with your business model. There'd be no way that we could offer the services that you offer to your clients all across various airports. And it became obvious really quickly that we would be foolhardy to try to take over the FBO. And we had, at that point, we got, I think, very serious about negotiating with Atlantic Aviation on the lease terms. Some members of the public, I don't think, understood that process, but we all got it, I think, very quickly.
And I would just, can you refresh, because it might help to reference that we did do that presentation recently in a public meeting relative to walking through the variety of management options. So it just might help to note for the public if they want to look back at that packet. It's all sort of blending together a little bit for me, but in recent months.
I was just going to make the point. I mean, it's never been our position to opine on community issues. The community, it's down to the community to decide how they want to run their airport, what they want out of their airport. Obviously, within federal law, you don't need me to tell you that. Having made that decision, I think we've always been a fervent believer in the public-private partnership. And to your point, Kelly, about the escalation, I think that joins us at the hip, which means we will have a vested interest in making sure all the stakeholders, customers, users, the community, the people on the airport are satisfied, their changing needs are constantly being met. And I think to your point, Mr. Chairman or Temporary Chairman Steve, sort of you're leveraging the skill of the thousands of different things we do day in, day out at 104 different locations. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes a lot of sense because you're getting that benefit without taking the risk. But again, it was never really for us to say this is how you should do it. We respect, especially a community like this, which is very engaged, that process.
Mm-hmm. And I will say through that analysis for the public's benefit, I think there are 4 main reasons that it did not make sense. The first is, again, an eye test. Sorry about the size of these charts, but
We have them in our
in this case, we would be taking on a significant level of capital investment and debt to reconstruct the FBO facilities as is proposed in this lease, and to meet the community's goals around net zero and community character and such. As you saw, Atlantic Aviation has a $105 million minimum commitment. That would be bonding and capacity that we would have to take on within our revenue streams. That would not be going to a new passenger terminal, mass transit, or runway match. And so one factor is certainly the debt up front. The other factors, which Clive alluded to, are fewfold. One, Atlantic Aviation enjoys economies of scale by operating over 100 fixed-based I think it's over 100, right? Okay, over 100 fixed-based operators. There are economies of scale not only in staffing overhead, but things like insurance and purchasing and so on and so forth that we would not necessarily enjoy. They also have valuable business experience and knowledge that would be very, very difficult for us to replicate. While I appreciate the confidence some members of the community had in us to take that over and run it as well, we have not been doing it. And so it would be, there'd be a learning curve and necessarily some inefficiencies there. And three, I think as we negotiated this lease, we recognized that the value in the Aspen brand isn't about just the business that's done here, right? It's about having Aspen as part of a broader network of FBOs and how that would help Atlantic Aviation potentially attract customers in other locations. That's part of the value proposition here. If we operated the FBO as a single operator, we wouldn't enjoy that network value, if you will. So those are really the four kind of reasons. And then we did model out with Recondo based on, different revenue streams as well as issuing debt. And you can just see these are all lines, different models of either us running the FBO or doing a management contract and taking on those debt responsibilities at various stages versus this is the line, the gray line is the lease agreement that's in front of you today. It wasn't even close as we went through it.
Steve, I just have, you guys did go into every detail in reading this document. You even covered radon testing. I was pretty impressed with that. But I do have a question under Article 23, disclaimer of liability. It's all in capitals. Is there a reason? Is that to make it?
Sure, I can, yeah.
Ryan yells a lot.
I read things pretty carefully.
It's an interesting question, but typically those kind of limitations of liability, when they're in capitals like that, the court interprets that as being shouting that out to the parties that this is here and you should pay attention to this.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, it wasn't in bold.
It's
it
not
was
an
just
accident
in caps.
that it's like that.
Okay, all right. So, because I know we were nervous about grammar and punctuation, and just wanted to make sure that
That
you
is
knew
not
that
a
we take
drafting
these
error.
things seriously and we read our stuff. And this was a very important document for us. We have been talking about it for a great deal of time, as everyone knows. Difficult decisions were made when we went through the RFP process. I'm glad we're at this point, and that we've been able to work together. And hopefully it's another step in us bringing our community back together and moving forward with issues related to the airport. Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready for a motion, Steve?
Well, are there any more questions, first of all, or comments?
I was looking for the comma that was of concern, but I just couldn't find it.
I'm not sure ever in my career I'll
That was the comment.
negotiate $1 billion contract.
One never knows.
One never knows.
So I remember a story from my childhood. My dad worked for Continental Airlines in their business department, and he was studying a contract between Continental and, I don't know, it might have been Rolls-Royce or a company that made the engines, and he discovered I don't know if it was a grammatical error or a misplaced comma or something where the interpretation of it was not clear, and he brought that to the attention of his bosses, and he actually saved Continental millions of dollars, and it really made the engine manufacturing company very upset about the deal. But the contract wasn't tight enough. There were, there was a mistake in it that hadn't been caught by anybody up to that point. So I mean, I know that you guys have been working on this very hard on both sides. I presume there aren't any of those kind of little glitches in there that might come back and bite us. I hope there are not. But I am just reminded of that story and how, I remember my dad telling us that when I was a kid, that had gone on, and he had been the one to discover the mistake. So I hope there are no mistakes like that in this lease. I think a lot of really bright people have worked on it, and I think that everything is going to be okay for 30 years or longer.
I thought you were going to say your dad got fired when he
No,
found the
no,
mistake.
no, he worked for Continental, so.
Yeah.
You all know why Steve is a Pickett County treasurer.
We did ironically have a fairly lengthy discussion about a comma
Yeah,
as late as last week.
That's why we had to bring it
That
up.
reminded me when John mentioned the comma that you were having a discussion about the comma. And I don't know if there was a specific thing in my dad's case, but that reminded me of that story.
I've always used the phrase as a preamble that I'm not burdened by a legal education. But at that point in time, our attorney Darwood and Herb and Anne-Marie and Rye, we were all very thankful for that sort of legal interpretation of language, and they led us down a path that got that resolved. So,
Well, and it also points out that this board has been involved in every detail. This is, as Kelly said, this is not the first time we've seen this, and that we have been involved in the discussions. Staff has kept us definitely in the loop. So I want the public to know that we have paid close attention to the negotiations as they move forward, and for the reasons why they might have gotten a little grammatical or grammarical, whichever way you want to pronounce it, but thank you.
So I would, Francie.
Yeah, so that's not a John Nash win-win situation. I think it's John Nash who did the economies where you actually can have a situation where both parties win. I think that was John Nash. This is one of those, I would say. So.
Yeah, so, are we ready? I think we are ready for a motion at this
All righty. I will make a motion.
Francie's on a roll, a
I
celebratory
know. These
roll
are pretty
today.
awesome motions to be making. I will make a motion to approve the fixed-based operator lease and use agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and Trojan Flight Support, LP DBA Atlantic Aviation.
I will second.
Okay,
And set for a
And
second
we will
reading.
have a public meeting on this on November 20th.
That's correct.
and we discussed having the possibility of public hearing today. We decided against it. We're going to follow our normal procedure. The second reading, we will have public hearing. I would urge members of the public, if they would like to send comments about the lease, to go ahead and send them in. One member of the public has already done that to, try to educate us a little bit more about things. But that would actually be a better way to have things written down, to present people's ideas and thoughts to the county commissioners, because we read all the comments that we receive from the public on that. And the public is also welcome to have their 3 minutes speaking time at the public hearing on November 20th?
November 20th. And their public comments that they submit in writing do go into the public record, so the general public can see all the comments that have been submitted.
Yeah. Okay, is there any further comments?
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passes 4-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, do we have another airport issue before we, no?
I hope we don't have another issue.
Good luck to you.
Good night.
We do have one more issue though.
No. I know.
That would be terrible.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm gonna use that for wrapping paper for Christmas.
Please. Please do. We'll get you.
Yeah.
some photo paper to go on.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Diane's not going anywhere. She's just changing seats.
We'll give a minute till the room quiets down a little bit.
I've been waiting all day for this.
We've been waiting a long time for this.
I know.
That I agree with.
Okay, our next item on our agenda is, let's see, where are we? Emergency resolution of the board adopting a formula for distribution of the municipal share of county sales tax revenue for the year 2025. And Liz Woods is here to do our final presentation on this. I think this will be our third time we've looked at this, so.
It's a confirmatory for the emergency
Yeah.
resolution.
Oh, yeah, we did pass it. It's in effect already. This is the confirmatory reading, and I believe this is a
Public
hearing today.
Correct.
On this.
Yes. So I'm Liz Woods, Finance Director, and we are here, as you said, for the sales tax resolution. This is the way that we distribute our county sales tax to the municipalities within Pickens County. I think you all know a lot about this at this point because I do it every year, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
The only question, nothing changed, so.
Nothing changed.
So this is a very important thing for the municipalities, who, the people spend the money in the municipalities, the sales taxes are paid, we collect them, and then we distribute them based on their percentage of.
So it's collected by
in
the
effect, that's
yes,
a
in
simple
effect, yes.
version of. So this is very important for both the county and the municipalities who are sharing the tax revenue.
Yes.
This is the formula that we have to calculate every year to make sure that everybody's getting what they're due.
Yes, correct.
Yep. So if no one has any questions, I would accept a motion.
Open the public hearing.
Oh, it is a public hearing, of course. Thank you.
You're just following in Greg's footsteps. You're doing a good job.
I haven't done this in a while, so this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public online who would like to comment about this? And I don't believe there is anybody, so I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Now I will accept a motion.
I will make a motion to pass on confirmatory reading, adopting the formula for distribution of the municipal share of county sales tax revenue for the year 2025 as required by Resolution 78-121.
I'll second, but I have a question. Does the timing of when we do this complicate the municipal budgeting process at all?
It can, and the other thing that's complicated is that we have a very short time to get these numbers together. Unfortunately, that is the way the ballot language was originally passed back in the 1978. So we do not get the August sales tax numbers until about the 8th of October, and we have to have this approved by November 1st.
Wow.
And so that with our two reading system, that makes things very difficult for us to get these numbers to you in a timely fashion as well. So it's that piece, and then it's also the piece, yes, they're going through their budget process right now. We do tend to give them a estimate based on where we are up until July, going into the budget season. But again, it usually doesn't change significantly, but it can change, and it can cause confusion for sure.
I just noticed there's some, for some of these, there could be changes year to year that are fairly significant.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
And then what happens with September, October, November, December? Is there maybe an adjustment after the first of the year? I can't remember.
it's just it's on a 2-year rolling average from September to August, basically. So it's
So it's not a June to July or July to June. It's not a January to December. It's got its own time
It's got its own timeline, yeah.
just to keep you guys on your toes.
So would it be worth to try to change, now is this state legislation that?
This would
that
have to go to
mandates?
the voters if we were to change something.
To the state?
No,
what?
to the
Picken County voters?
voters.
To Picken County.
Not ready to do that again.
So, I mean, that's something that we, that you guys on the future board could consider maybe contemplating changing that. If it
You want to
would,
run the campaigns?
if it would make it easier for our staff and for the cities to get their figures perhaps at a time that is more timely for them for their budget. So I don't know, I'll leave that where it is, but it's something to think about.
Yes.
You could put it on way back in the back of the parking lot.
At least 2 years and 2 months, and then.
Yeah.
We have a
You just
motion
call the
and a
We
question.
do have a motion and a second, so, all in favor of this, say
Aye.
aye.
Hi, thank
Aye?
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Thank you, Ann, and Ann, thank you so much for your photographs of you ice skating on the high mountain lakes. You never cease to amaze me on what you do that other people don't make the effort to do.
She's a very
And you have
creative
these
photographer.
Awesome experiences.
Look, Greg was
Well, and
still in
I
the
want to
building.
thank you both, if I can, thank you guys for all your effort and the prep for the ballot measures that passed yesterday. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Tammy has her hand raised. She has to
Okay,
probably be
call up
promoted.
Tammy on the screen.
I think we're moving on to land use.
So this next item is land use public hearing. It's the NMP Residence Trust / SCP Residence Trust West Buttermilk Pfister Tracts 1 and 2.
And it's
And
my
they're-
understanding we're continuing till, I believe, November 20th?
Is that right? Because November 20th is going to be another
It's
full one. I
packed.
wasn't sure if we should do the.
I'm pretty sure that's what we worked out with the applicant. Tammy can probably,
Okay.
Yeah,
talk about that a little bit more, but I think that was what we agreed on with the applicant. So, and
So-
that, moving it from today's date to the 20th was done at, I guess, my request is what I would add.
So
Well,
you're the
thank
one? I just fear that we're gonna have both the public hearings on the FBO and the ALP. We could be hearing a land use application in the wee hours of a long day. So, I suggest that we continue it right now to the 20th, and then maybe talk with the applicant and continue it till the 4th of December, if that works for them, because that's gonna be a very long evening.
I think that would be, Tammy, if you could talk to them and see if that would be acceptable to them, because I would hate to get at the end of an 8-hour meeting and be trying to decide this as the last item on the agenda on November 20th and being really exhausted.
Sure.
And then not
Sure, yeah.
making the
We-
best decision.
Yep, I can run it by them and see what they would prefer. I would say that they have been continuing this to try and get on a favorable agenda, so I don't want to keep delaying them if we can fit it. I think they would prefer that, but I will run it by them.
Yeah, we didn't know then that we would be doing both of the big airport issues at the same time, moving it forward, so.
So for today, we could just set it for the 20th, and then if the 4th is acceptable to them, then we could
Continue it on the
continue it on
20th.
the 20th till the 4th.
So I'll make a motion, if it's okay, to continue this item until November the 20th. And let's just leave it at that and see what the applicant is willing to do to move it to the 4th, and we can deal with that on the 20th. Either hear it or move it.
A
Okay.
second.
Okay, seconded by Francie. Now, this is not a public hearing today because it's the first readings, is that correct?
And I think Tammy would have to she said yes.
Yeah.
So we don't need to open
was
up
a public
public hearing today. Okay. Any further discussion?
I
All
just-
in favor?
Oh, sorry.
Kelly, go ahead.
I just would note that, the Bell Jack Blue application is scheduled to come back on the 20th as well, so maybe they want to move instead.
Or maybe they both want to move.
Well, I know that Glenn and Cody are handling both of these applications, I think, so some coordination with the applicants is probably noteworthy. They have been flexible, which I appreciate. So,
They also
We'll-
know
we'll
what
chat with
happens in
them.
a long day.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
Okay, all right, if you want to call the question.
all right. All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, passes 4-0. Thank you. Open discussion.
I think I've used all my words for the day.
I do have, I have one. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Embraer 175 inaugural flight is due, I believe, to come in on December 3rd.
December 3rd in the morning, I think it's 10.
And we have we have a work session that day, and it's an Open Space and Trails joint meeting. I think the inauguration is like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So we won't be able to do exec that morning. I want to be there when that new jet comes in.
You
That's
do.
the 175 too?
It's the 175 inaugural flight.
Can't be the 2 because the 2 has a wider
Yeah,
wingspan.
it's the
It's
E175.
whatever one's coming in's coming in.
Why don't we
So-
do it exec over there?
Molly just flew on an Embraer
Because Open Space and Trails will be
175.
here, the board. We have exec with Open Space and Trails.
They'd probably be willing to come out to the airport, would be my guess, but
But I don't know
Do you
how
wanna
we
still
do
look
the
at that?
opening and exec. And can we figure something out so we can be there?
I don't care about being there.
It looks like it's a light day. Maybe we could do Open Space and Trails exec at lunch and move that meeting further into the afternoon. Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up now so we can make plans for the 3rd. And we need to notice it also because I think we'll all, or most of us would want to be there.
So, thanks for bringing that up. I would like to be there too. I have flown on Embraer 175 before out of Denver. And I maybe flew on another one. I think I flew on another one from Phoenix to San Francisco a couple of years ago. I'm always aware of what airplane I'm getting onto anymore because I'm really curious about different kinds of aircraft. So I think that would be important for us to be there. Okay, any other
No,
open
I have mine.
discussion? Kelly?
This feels like way too soon to be talking about, but I'm just gonna let you all know, as a courtesy of my colleagues, that I have been asked and I agreed to join on an petition committee at the city for putting ballot language on their March ballot relative to the use of rural open space for the current and any future record of decision for the entrance to Aspen. And so I just didn't want you all taken by surprise when that gets reported, because those petitions will start circulating in the next month.
What is the petition gonna say?
It is, well, I mean, I can read you the language, but it's basically gonna ask the voters to give CDOT permission to use the rural open space for any current or future record of decision that gets approved under NEPA for transportation and transit and wildfire evacuation routes.
So it's in favor of using open space for
Right. For
transportation
well,
improvements.
and it clarifies that the open space has already been mitigated in the past.
So, and to give you a heads up, there's a petition circulating, which I have signed, that will be on the March ballot, the city, changing the percentages of yes and no votes for the use of open space.
From?
I think it's a 60-40.
Instead of going 50-50, they want to change
Yeah,
it to
you want to
60-40.
change it to 50-50.
I don't,
No.
the people who are petitioning
They
do,
want
and
to
I
change
signed
it to 60.
I signed it because I believe that the people have the right to vote on issues such as that.
So this is a little bit of a similar situation that we saw yesterday with two relevantly competing questions.
And
But
I'm also potentially working on a campaign for someone who is seriously thinking about running for a city council seat, but
That's
has
great.
not, which I'm
they
very
also
excited.
have to file petitions in the next month.
Yeah,
right?
also
Yeah.
the next month.
I thought they have to have their petitions in sometime in December. To
That's
get
what
on
John
ballot.
Doyle told me. December 1st, I think.
I don't know, but this
Oh.
person is, I think, working closely with city clerk's office,
That's good.
which should be advising him of those things.
So it all feels really too soon, but here we go.
So I was hoping you were going to talk about putting something on next November that we're going to have to start campaigning for.
I just wanted you all to hear from
Speaking
me
of
first.
ballot questions, I thought you were gonna talk about the housing, affordable
Oh.
housing tax, which I would like to talk about right now, John. I am just like so overwhelmed that the housing tax passed by such a good margin. That was such a validation that we are doing the right thing here as commissioners. And I want to start spending the money right away, but I don't even know when
You have to
the money.
collect it.
I don't know when the money becomes available, when we could start spending it.
News for you, Steve. It's next year.
Well, I figured it was probably next year, but I mean it, just the possibilities of what projects we could participate in is mind-boggling. It's like I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited for you guys because you'll get to decide all these wonderful things going in. So I don't know. It's probably Ashley who you would turn loose on coming up with some of the ideas, but what's the process
So
we're going to
what-
follow on this?
Yeah, so what we will do is bring back more generalized appropriations within categories for the board's consideration in this budget. And that will give us parameters then to work with to, we can have serious discussions about partnership now. It was difficult, right, to have those conversations as we talked about at the table, but that could be, talking to Snowmass, talking to Aspen, how we move Phillips forward, the hospital and the school district, and, whether there's opportunities to stand up a housing trust that could support our small businesses and ACRA and those sorts of things. So we have a lot of options right now. I think we're hopeful that if this lease is approved, it gives us some private dollars that might go into a housing trust in the future. So the first process is going to be to set those parameters through budget appropriations. And then that will include some appropriations to use towards homeless services, partnerships, Phillips, those sorts of things. And then we'll go out and start to develop some proposals to bring back to this board to use those funds. And we'll want to get them out on the ground.
Steve, and let's not forget the $450,000 that went to Habitat. We're paying back out of this.
Yeah, we already spent a little bit of it.
So you can
We
be
had
part of
greatly
that spending.
But
I
this,
won't have a
I mean,
problem with
this
that.
reminds me of when we passed the multi-million-dollar thing several years ago, or reserved that money for our housing things. Well, this is basically that, even a greater amount than that every year that we
Every
will
year.
have. So
Yeah.
there's so many possibilities that it's exciting.
I think it's important for you all to reflect to just the leadership it took from you to get to where we are today. I want to give GR some credit. He stopped by my desk. He's like, do you realize how many generational things we have going on right now? Housing, past, that's going to have a generational impact, right? The landfill,
so.
right? The landfill is a generational impact. The airport, generational impact. And it's been tough, right? There's been some tough conversations and a lot of hard work that you all have had to put in to get this done. But this is to your point, Steve, this is all a big deal. and took a lot of leadership, and I hope you all can take some time to celebrate that.
Well, I could have great grandchildren by the time we're renegotiating a contract on the airport.
Yeah.
And hope you do.
And I hope you do. Yeah.
I would like to have them sooner than that.
So I was born the year that Sardi Field was created out there in the field.
It used to be the Pepke's.
10:15 tomorrow? We have
All right.
exec session?
Kelly, drive safely.
I will accept the motion to adjourn this regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm just clarifying what time we start tomorrow because this says
10:15.
10:15. Aye.
Do we have exec tomorrow?
No.
Nope. You had something.
Because
I was
we have
gonna
a
throw
full
some of
agenda
the
tomorrow.
items on to